Thank you.
Good evening, Holt Public. Due to the fact that this is the first board meeting of the 2021 school year, we need to hold board elections for officers. Before that, I would like to call the meeting to order. And at this point, I would like to call the January Board of Education meeting to order for Holt Public Schools, Dimondale, and Holt, Michigan. January is School Board Appreciation Month. Board, we appreciate your ongoing leadership and service. Thank you for all you do. I will now lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board and members of the public, the mission of Holt Public Schools is to innovate, educate, and inspire, empowering all students to make a positive impact in their communities. The vision of Holt Public Schools is to empower our learning community to make a positive impact in the world. Now, board, before calling for nominations for the president, I'd like to share some reflective words. Like many of you, the events that transpired last week have been very disheartening and discouraging for me. I maintain my hopefulness that together we are better. I believe that we can build a system that demonstrates empathy for each of our experiences and the experiences of other, which includes a strong sense of social justice, demonstrates cultural competency, and demonstrates an appreciation for democratic institutions and the democratic process. In Holt Public, we value individuals and group differences by recognizing that people learn in different ways and at different rates. We invite varied viewpoints into decision-making, and we recognize that all stakeholders can contribute to achieving our goals. We attempt to provide choices for our learners. We accomplish this by building and sustaining human relationships, by modeling trustworthy behaviors, respect, and openness, by being curious and asking questions. Civility benefits us all. Acting civil with one another helps develop and strengthen relationships. While engaged in a civil discussion, people often feel heard, recognized, respected, and treasured. I'm proud of the work our stakeholders are doing. I fear we may have frustrated some stakeholder groups, such as our HEAT group recently. Their work is remarkable, and their drive to change our system is contagious. I'd like to apologize specifically to the Parent and Guardian Subcommittee, who spent hours on a list of recommendations for our admin and board to consider. The recommendations are excellent, and your dedication is admirable. To that end, we look forward to collaborating with you on your recommendations moving forward. A copy of the recommendations has been placed on the district website under the HEAT button, and if it's not there yet, it will be soon. You have my firm commitment to continue to lead our learning community with a civil mindset, and I will continue to embrace those we serve. When we choose to act civil, we all benefit. It is my sincere hope that we will all continue to serve as a model moving forward as our children are observing us. With that, since we are electing officers this evening, I will oversee the election of the president, and then the president will preside over the remainder of the meeting. Board Bylaw 0152 states the board will elect officers by ballot. Due to us operating in a virtual platform, we are suspending Bylaw 0152, and I will open the floor for nominations to elect the board president to reside during the calendar year 2021.
Dr. Hornak, I'd like to nominate Mr. Perry for president.
I'll second that.
All right, are there any other nominations? This is where I'm not going to get this right. Would there be any discussion at this point?
This is the place for discussion if we were to have discussion.
Yep. Okay, hearing none. We have a first and a second. And I believe we vote at this point. See, I'm not.
Yeah, we need to do a roll call vote, and typically we would have our secretary, Trustee Bureau, do that, but I will step in and do that this round.
Thank you.
Secretary. We didn't think about that part, but look at us go. Okay, Trustee Bureau. Thumbs up.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Trustee Dalton.
Yes.
Trustee Hallgren.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee Leonard.
Yes.
Trustee Perry.
Yes.
Trustee Roble.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries by unanimous consent.
I'm out of business now. Mr. Perry, you take over.
All right, well, thank you for your time, Dr. Hornak. And we'll move to the vice president of the board. And at this time, I'll take the nomination for nominations for the vice president.
President Perry, I would like to nominate Trustee Dalton for vice president.
Second.
I have first and a second. Any others? Any discussion? All right, Ms. Lopez, if we could do a roll call vote.
Pardon me. Trustee Bureau,
Yes.
trustee Dalton,
Yes.
trustee Hallgren,
Yes.
trustee Jones,
Yes.
trustee Leonard,
Yes.
trustee Perry,
Yes.
trustee Roble.
Yes.
All right, we'll move to the election of the secretary of the board. So at this time, I'll take nominations.
Mr. President, if trustee Bureau is still up to the task, I would like to nominate her for secretary.
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. Any other nominations? Any discussion? Ms. Lopez, if we could do a roll call vote.
Trustee Bureau,
Yes.
trustee Dalton,
Yes.
trustee Hallgren,
Yes.
trustee Jones,
Yes.
trustee Leonard,
Yes.
trustee Perry,
Yes.
trustee Roble.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous consent.
All right, then our last election is for the treasurer.
Mr. President, I just might as well continue on here. If trustee Hallgren is still up for the task, I'd like to nominate Dr. Hallgren for treasurer.
I'd second.
I have first and a second. Any other nominations? Any discussion? Ms. Lopez, if we could do a roll call.
I was going to throw it to trustee Bureau, but I'm on it. Trustee Bureau,
Yes.
trustee Dalton,
Yes.
trustee Hallgren,
Feel like I should abstain, but yes.
trustee Jones,
Yes.
trustee Leonard,
Yes.
trustee Perry,
Yes.
and trustee Roble.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous consent again.
All right. Thank you all, board members, and your willingness to serve in these roles. We'll move to the changes and additions to the agenda. I believe we can strike 11.1, but I wanted to check with you, Ms. Lopez, if there's anything there.
General correspondence. I don't believe so.
And Mr. Perry, we can also strike 9.5.
So we'll strike 9.5 and 11.1. And with those changes, we will move to public comment. And for those who would like to address the board, this is your time to do so. Please, however, remember that there is a 5-minute time limit per person. We ask that you be courteous. The other thing that we ask is that you do not use employees' name and you do not use any student names. And we did have a previous sign up. So Ms. Bureau, if you would like to call those individuals.
The first one, we have Sarah Arthur.
Hello, thank you to the board. This is Sarah Arthur. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to engage with you tonight. I'm a parent volunteer on the whole equity and access team with the Parent Support Committee. And Dr. What has been said already tonight is so true. They've been working super hard, and it's such an honor to be part of that group. He mentioned a letter that was given to the Board of Education, and I would like to summarize the first portion of that letter that the HEAP Parent Support Committee has put before the board. It outlines the results of our work addressing parent concerns regarding the hiring, recruitment, and retention of diverse faculty in the district, and it also suggests 10 strategies for addressing this issue moving forward. And I'm excited to tell you that over 100 parents and community members have signed the letter, which demonstrates the urgency and passion and commitment for this effort. And if you have your copy in front of you, you're welcome to follow along. The first portion is just simply kind of the impetus behind the recommendations that we were making, the suggestions we were making in the letter. And so I'll do that first portion, and another parent will go through summarize those 10 strategies, suggested strategies. Holt Public Schools has excellent teachers, a hardworking staff, and overall welcoming community, but many events nationwide in neighboring school districts and some incidences here in our own district make it clear that systemic racism is present in all public education institutions. We were so pleased last summer to hear our district, in the midst of a global pandemic, declare that racism is a public health crisis. Well done. Thank you. That provides so much passion and drives so much of our work. Also in the summer of 2020, as stated at previous board meetings and summarized in the district-wide climate survey that parents filled out last summer, the #1 priority for Holt parents is for our district to recruit, hire, and retain minority teachers, coaches, and administration that represents our student population. And I would like to just personally add, this is not merely representation for representation's sake, but rather our committee collated research that shows the critical and necessary importance of same-race educators on student outcomes, particularly before 3rd grade. Data from the state of Michigan illustrates a stark picture of the lack of representation for our minority students at Holt Public Schools. For the 2019 to 2020 school year, data online reports that minority students account for 38% of the student body. That's nearly 40% of our student body, while minority teachers in Holt equals only about 2% of all teachers. And administration statistics report approximately 95% white. And we'd also like to direct your attention to the district's strategic plan from 2019 to 2024 under the Personnel Leadership Goals section, which states, Holt Public Schools will be a destination district that attracts, develops, and supports exceptional and diverse personnel. It goes on to define that goal to include that it would mean recruit qualified, professional employees that mirror our diverse student population. So again, the 10 strategies will be gone over by another parent since my time's running out. We have strategies for establishing a Holt Public Schools Director of Equity and Inclusion, as well as a recruitment and retention plan for diverse faculty. And as has been mentioned, this letter is listed under the work on the HEAT homepage. If you go to the district website and then scroll down to the HEAT logo, you click on that, it'll take you to the HEAT webpage. And from there, you can see the work of all the committees. And under the Parent Support Committee, you'll find the link to that letter. And we still encourage parents and community members to sign it because this is exciting work and we're so glad to be in all of it with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bureau?
Sarah Arthur.
That was Sarah.
Sorry, I got my Sarahs mixed up. Sarah Lepley.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. My name is Sarah Lepley, and I'm a parent volunteer on the Parent Support Subcommittee of the Holt Equity and Access team. I'm just going to follow up with what Sarah Arthur was just saying and summarize that second portion of a letter that's been sent out to all of you. Some of this is going to repeat, but it's worth saying again. The letter outlines the results of our work addressing parent concerns regarding the hiring, recruitment, and retention of diverse faculty in the district. Over 100 parents and community members have read and signed the letter, which definitely demonstrates the urgency, the passion, the commitment that the community has for this effort. So a few of the strategies that we strongly recommend are to create an official and standing diversity, equity, and inclusion director position to manage the equity and inclusion recruitment and retention plan for the district, who'll work closely with HR to anticipate hiring needs and representation goals. We suggest including a HEAP member in the entire hiring process, from recruiting, interviewing, and final decision in every new hire district-wide. We're suggesting to conduct a difference hiring audit on our current hiring process and include in all further hiring committees a HEAP member and or minority Holt Public School parent, and include transparency in the criteria that determines essential versus non-essential staff and who makes that determination. A commitment to increasing representation in teaching positions to equal 10% by 2024, 20% by 2027, and equal to our different student population by 2030. To increase differences in final candidate pools, ensure that there are at least 2 minority candidates. So research featured in Harvard Business Review found that when final candidate pools only have 1 minority candidate, he or she has virtually no chance of being hired. So if there are at least 2 minority candidates in final candidate pools, the odds of hiring a minority candidate are 194 times greater. This is called the 2 in the pool effect. I'm excited about this. Require equity and inclusion training for board members, administration, faculty, and staff, as well as anti-bias and hiring training for all those who are on hiring committees. Develop and support minority teacher mentoring programs similar to the Bond Project. Encourage staff development, retention, and recruitment through training and support in the areas of cultural competency, cross-cultural communication, and other areas of equity and inclusion. And by the start of the 2021-2022 school year, all district strategic plans should involve a HEAP member in their creation. So based on the survey results, there's little faith in the board or administration in regards to transparency. Therefore, we're requesting that a HEAP member be involved in all policy-making decisions moving forward. And in reference to discrimination cases filed, we'd like to have a HEAP member on the review team. So we're hoping that these recommendations should serve as a guide in creating a district-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion recruitment and retention plan. Again, as Sarah Arthur already mentioned, and Dr. Hornak said, that the letter is available on the HEAT website, which can be found if you go through the district homepage, where you can sign on to show your support. I was really encouraged today actually to see that this is something that has been on the radar for the district and students in the district for quite some time. And I'm really excited about the opportunity that we have here to see this move forward and to really make those changes happen for these students, and to make Holt really that destination school that we want it to be. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lepley. Ms. Bureau?
Sarah Moore.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sarah Moore. I would like to speak tonight as a parent and just share a personal experience. Each of my 3 African-American sons have had 1 African-American teacher. I actually had forgotten about one teacher in thinking about this because it's so rare. 2 of my sons have graduated, 1 is a sophomore. My daughter has not had 1 African-American teacher, male or female. She's in the 8th grade. I remember one of my sons searching for representation beginning in the 6th grade as he began his teen years. He went on an active search for successful men who looked like him. However, in his learning environment, it would not be until the junior high that he would have his 1 African-American teacher. And he would tell me, he said this, Mom, he understands that. I really respect him. My son would light up talking about this teacher. He had never spoken like this about a teacher before. The impact of having a Black male teacher in the classroom for my son was clear. It was a powerful experience for him. I wonder how his experiences and truly who he is might be different if that one powerful experience was the norm. What would he have searched intently for instead in the 6th grade? I can only speculate now, but as he searched for representation and found little, I know that he internalized and struggled with this in a multitude of complex ways that all contributed to how he viewed himself in the world. Children need to see teachers who look like them. I worry about my daughter. Will she have an opportunity to have a teacher that looks like her? How will she internalize all of this? I think about our larger community as well, and I guarantee that each one of our student body, our different student body, they search for leaders that look like them too. I'm simply here tonight to support the parent letter that is asking the district to hear us, that we need representation in the classroom, and that our children cannot wait. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Ms. Bureau?
Sallyhockharrison.
Hello, do you hear me?
We can.
All right. Welcome to 2021. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. We need to teach Robert Dozer how to smile. He's the only one that hasn't smiled all night. I know he can hear me. There we go. All right. I am a Girl Scout leader and I love Girl Scouts. And it is Girl Scout cookie time. Now, with the COVID, I don't know how many Girl Scout cookie booths they're going to allow outside of outside of businesses and all of that. But if you have any Girl Scout connections, I know Rob Helgren does, but any cute little brownie Girl Scout that would come up to you and want to sell you Girl Scout cookies. When I worked years ago in Lansing General Hospital, I worked with one nurse who bought one box of cookies from whatever girl was out there asking, because she felt that that was a way of spreading out who she bought from, rather than buy 10 or 15 boxes or whatever you were gonna buy from one girl. So just planting a seed to what you're gonna do. I'm a nurse, I work in a home health care, and I work in a home, and I know I can't mention any names, right, Dr. Dave? Okay, now I'm not going to. But there is a kindergartner and a 2nd grader that go to Wilcox and are on the Chromebooks. Those parents struggle with the Chromebooks because neither of them are very techy, but both teachers are glorious. The kindergarten teacher and the 2nd grade teacher at Wilcox, and the gym teacher, which when they have virtual gym, it's really kind of cute. I've watched them and all that. So keep going with that. Commend those Wilcox teachers, and those are the only ones I've got in contact with this whole COVID year, as I've called it. I also love the backgrounds behind you guys. It's really interesting. I really don't believe that Jennifer Roble is in a classroom, though. I don't believe, I don't know, maybe not, I don't know. And I think Dr. Dave doesn't really know his name. He has far too many name tags behind him.
That's
My building hasn't even been built yet behind me,
Oh,
Sally.
well, all right, that's a backdrop, huh? Okay. Then the food. Let's talk about the food on Monday that you guys hand out. That has been glorious. Those parents go and get this food for in their home, and they love it. There are a lot of things they really enjoy, a lot of things they like, and there are a few things that the kids don't really like, but the parents have them eat them anyway, kind of thing, like all of us parents that teach our kids to eat fruits and vegetables and all that. With the holiday on Monday, the 18th, is there going to be a food distribution? Has that message been out there to these parents? And that will be taken care of so that these parents will know that. I'm sure that that's probably in the works. So I know you guys are working hard, and I know it's been a lot of hard decisions. And I know that there are statistics out there that do not agree with kids getting back to school. But if you look at how many kids get sick versus how many adults are getting this, even this second strain, which is a horrible thing, I know that the kids are safer than the adults. Just putting that out there. That's my personal feeling. Because I know this kindergartner and this second grader want to get back to school, because they tell me that every day that I work with their little brother. So just putting that out there. Thank you so much. I love you guys. I love Holt Schools. I love you, Dr. Dave. Keep smiling. I'm done.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hochharrison.
You're welcome.
Perry, I did just have contact with Mr. Robertson, our food service director, and there will be food distribution on MLK. So I know we have a large number of participants today. I just wanted to be able to make sure you could announce that.
All right, thanks for that clarity. Ms. Bureau, do we have anybody else signed up?
Yes, Cynthia McCants.
Okay, I'm here. I am a parent and also part of the subcommittee that helped work on the letter. And so I just want to go over what our experience has been with the whole school district and why I feel it's very strongly that changes need to be made. We moved into the district in 2004. Our first issue with racism came when my son was in the second grade. He answered a question the teacher had asked, and a so-called friend said, "You think you're smart, but you're not because you're Black." I applaud the teacher that sent the student to the office immediately at a level 3. However, we were disappointed because we were not contacted by the school. We were contacted by the boy's parent, who was embarrassed because the boys were supposed to be friends. When I asked why we had not been contacted by the school, the principal admitted he didn't know how to handle the situation. It was obvious at that point that the district had not prepared the staff to handle racial issues. Very, very disappointing. During his middle school years, the principal would call him into the office to ask him about other boys of color. And I just wonder how many white kids got called in to find out about other white kids. Again, very unacceptable. High school has been a very mixed year. Great teachers, most of them. However, we've experienced teachers and counselors who do not return emails, do not return phone calls, do not follow up on what they say they will do. It's been well over a year, pre-COVID, that the counselor told me that my son he would have a meeting with him. Still waiting on that meeting. Obviously, we're handling things ourselves. I understand this, excuse me, past football season was very challenging. My son started the first game, played his heart out. Where did that get him? It actually got him benched. It was obvious he was not the person the coach wanted on the field. After that initial game, we got an explanation of we were trying something different. Well, if different works, why not stay with it? But again, he wasn't a chosen one. Pre-game, another student said, "Hey, coach, we need McCants in." The coach reply was, "He's not eligible." This was very untrue, and it should not have been said in front of the whole team. I checked with the athletic director. He was eligible the entire year. To my knowledge, nothing like this has happened to a white student. Needless to say, I'm not very happy with the district. And I hope some of what you're hearing tonight, you will understand why things needs to be changed. There's also a stigmatism on kids that are school of choice. And it's automatically assumed that these are kids of color. As a committee, we've asked for information from administration as to the racial makeup of the school of choice kids. We have yet to receive that. So I'm hoping that information you hear tonight will encourage you to make some drastic changes within the district so that all kids, regardless of their color, regardless of their race, regardless of their background, feel welcome and can identify with teachers, administrators, and board members that look like them. If the students are to be successful, they need someone to identify with. A good starting place would be the vacancies that currently exist. Let's get some color. Let's get some color and diversity with these vacancies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cantz. Ms. Bureau, do we have another?
Alan Ingram. All right, he looks like he just disappeared. He had his hand up.
I see that he's at the bottom of the screen.
There's
If you could
pictures
take,
there.
yeah, if you could take your mute off.
Oh, thank you so much. I apologize for the inconvenience there. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. We are a family of 6 with 4 children that are new to Holt Public Schools this school year. We currently have 2 children in the district, one in 3rd grade and one in kindergarten. This has been a crazy time, obviously, to have children in a public school system. And there is no doubt the global pandemic has been trying for all, and consideration must be paid to the health and safety of all. However, my wife and I have significant concerns about the quality of education our children are receiving. We are fortunate enough to have one parent at home working side by side with our children to ensure their education is a priority here. However, we continue to see other families who are not so fortunate. As parents, we are not educators. As such, it is challenging to know how our children are doing in school. We are told they're doing well, but that does little to ease our minds. In our previous district, our oldest was in advanced classes, and the teachers were very vocal in sharing test scores, progress reports, and general status updates with the parents. However, in this time, we've gotten nothing indicating specifics on how our children are doing. Well does not indicate if they are at grade level, below grade level, or above grade level. This makes us continually wonder how other children are doing. We have a hard time believing our children are proceeding through their education at home with as much success as they would in school with a trained educator. We would respectfully request the district publicize any and all test scores, whether through email or other method. Similarly, while the physical health and safety of all must be considered, the social health of our students needs to also be considered. No one expects the school district to return to normal right now. We understand the return to learn plan entails a partial return to in-person learning. We understand the children will need to wear masks, social distance, and take other safety precautions. However, I'd respectfully remind the board that the children have been living while doing these things for the last 10 months. It is not far reach for them to understand this needs to happen when back in person. Finally, my wife and I were thrilled to hear Governor Whitmer's desire to have all districts offer a return to in-person learning by March 1st. For the last several months, my wife and I have spent numerous nights wiping tears off our girls' faces, explaining to them that they will eventually be able to go to school, meet friends, and see their teachers in person. We cannot wait to see the smiles on their faces when they come home from their first day back in person. It is our sincere hope that the district makes it their similar goal to get our children back in front of educators no later than March 1st. If not, we hope the district will explain why it, while in the same county as the governor, will not follow her guidance or recommendation. Furthermore, if the board has no intention of returning children back to in-person learning this year, please be upfront with the parents. Please don't push it back 1 week or 1 more month at a time. Please make a decision and give us the truth. At least then we can plan for our children's education accordingly. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I wish you all good health and wellness. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Ms. Bureau, do we have anyone else?
I see no hands up.
Okay, then we will close this section of public comment.
Mr. Perry, there is one now. As soon as I said that, one popped up.
Okay.
D. McCants.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, my name is Dennis McCants. You heard from my wife earlier. I'll be brief. I will applaud the HEAT team for their efforts this year, everybody involved with it. I sat on a subcommittee of parents in regards to recruiting and retention. There was a letter that was developed and sent to the board. I'm sure you've all got it by now. I just want to make a few small statements in regards to that. This particular letter were the thoughts of many parents that are either have kids in the district or teachers that work in the district or people that have been in the district. There's a lot of people that are very concerned about your recruiting process. There are a lot of people that are also concerned about the advancement of people in the district. I guess to put it very frank, we'd love to see somebody involved in that process. And preferably not in the next 3 to 5 years, within the next 1 or 2 months. As everybody on this call knows, there's a significant shortage of teachers in every school district. You're going to have to hire teachers anyway. Why not start now changing what's going on in this district right now? That's all I've got to say.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCants. Anyone else who would like to address the board at this time?
Erin Umpstead.
Hello, friends. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you for allowing me just a bit of time. My heart is beating really fast. I'm trying to think why that is, because I teach speech and I know how to do this. And I think it's because what's called for now is a willingness to sit in discomfort. And it's icky and I don't like it. So I wanted to give you a virtual sticker to each of you and tell you that you are loved and appreciated. And that really is how Holt will do this, is we know how to love each other. And it's awkward sometimes and it's weird and but it's unique and it's good. So I wish us school appropriate love, and I wish us a willingness to sit in discomfort, because it'll get better and we'll know how to do it and we'll learn. So thank you for your time. And when I see you in person, you'll get that sticker.
All right, thank you, Ms. Umpstead.
Elijah Burton.
Thank you, Ms. Bureau. Hello, board. Thank you. And I just want 5 seconds. I just want to thank Mr. Leonard for taking the time to normalize pronouns in your picture with your pronouns there. I do appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Burton. Anyone else that would like to address the board at this time? Okay, I'll close this section, of public comment, and we will move to item 8, the consent agenda. And board members, you have the board meetings of the regular board meeting of December 14th, 2020, along with the bills that were paid in the month of December, and also the gifts that the district received. Dr. Hornak, I don't know if you want to note anything about those gifts for us.
Yes, thank you, President Perry. We had community donations to our heat group of $880. Very proud of that. Much of which I believe will be going to a special author visit that HEAT, in coordination with a Greater Lansing Equity and Access team, is working on coordinating. But I'm very proud of the work that's being supported by our HEAT members. Community donations to the pop-up pantry of over $1,300, and those donations were turned around and supplied holiday meals. Okay, so both at the Thanksgiving and the Christmas time. And the First Presbyterian Church of Holt has adopted Sycamore, and to that end has donated $500, well, I have small print, $590.30, or gifted that to Sycamore Elementary. So wonderful support by our community, and I would ask you at this point to approve the consent agenda as well as accept all of the gifts.
I move to approve the consent agenda and thank our generous donors. It's really touching to see the donations that we get. I'm so glad that our community is so supportive.
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Bureau, if we could do a roll call vote.
Roble,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Bureau, yes, Halgren,
Yes.
and Dalton.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We'll move to reports, and the first item on our agenda is the 2021 bond update.
Thank you, President Perry. This will be brief. I just would like members of our public to know where we're at in the bond process. On the December 14th, at the December 14th board meeting, you as a board approved the pre-qualification application, which was then officially submitted to the Department of Treasury. And our application sits there, and it will continue to sit there for approximately 4 to 6 weeks while it undergoes review. Simultaneously, we have started building specific staff engagements. Those will start later this week. Okay, so that is where our bond partners will be meeting with each building staff to talk about the big picture, what's happening in their building specifically, and then start determining the next steps to collect their feedback on the detail work. So we will need each group of building staff members to contribute to the detail work in the design phase. So that's where we are right now. We continue to meet on Tuesday mornings as a steering committee, and we have, I think, all but one of those bond engagements scheduled. Looking forward to supporting that moving forward. So there you have it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hornak, for that update. Moving to student representative reports, our 2 board members are Paige Tompkins and Joey Gantz. And I don't believe either of them are with us this evening, but Ms. Tompkins has a written correspondence that
Yes.
Ms. Lopez is going to read for us.
Hello all. I'm sorry I could not be in attendance again today. I have an important AP prep test scheduled for 7 a.m. that I cannot miss. I will, however, have my report shared with you once again. My discussions with my peers, teachers, and community members have gotten me thinking. Governor Whitmer said that her goal is for schools to be back in session by March. Though that would be ideal, we need to think realistically for our district. Holt schools could take many precautions to make sure protocols are met, masks, social distancing, desk shields, etc. The schools can meet protocols, but that doesn't mean the students will. There are many risks that would come with returning. Not everyone will follow rules. Some may think they do not need to wear masks, or they may simply refuse to. Some may be excited to see their friends again and that they disregard the social distancing rules. With the vaccine becoming available to the public, it would be ideal that it was taken by everyone, but that won't be the case. Some will not get it for one reason or another. All it takes is one person to not follow the rules or disregard regulations and get COVID-19, and then for it to spread. Now, teachers, students, and staff are all at risk, and they are bringing it home to their families, putting them at risk too. This is not just my thinking either. I've had discussions with many of my peers and teachers. Online learning isn't for everyone, but it is the safest option for everyone. It would have been ideal if we could start off the second semester in person instead of interrupting online learning by coming back mid-semester. Starting back in person in the middle of a new semester would be quite hectic for both students and staff. Another conflict would be the online or in-person option. Having classes split up would be difficult, especially for teachers. Ideally, it would be better for everyone to remain in the same environment, but that wouldn't be the case. It seems the best option would be to finish the year virtually. By the time the 2021-2022 school year comes around, hopefully the COVID cases have gone down, people are vaccinated, and the proper precautions are made so we could start and stay in person rather than start and close down again. Again, this is not just my reasoning. From all the discussions I've had with people, there is a common theme, and that is fear. They fear the virus and the chance of getting it. They fear for themselves, their friends, and their family. As the saying goes, it is better to be safe than sorry. I do hope you take this into consideration. I would love to go back as much as the next student, but I don't believe now is the right time. Thank you for your time and have a great night. Paige.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Lopez, and Paige, good luck on your AP exam tomorrow. Next, Trustee Holgren, if you want to recap us on the Ingham School Official Association's meeting.
Sure. We didn't have a formal agenda. In fact, this wasn't even a scheduled meeting. It was added in kind of at the last minute based on some feedback at the previous meeting. It was more of a discussion between the board members from the various districts. We talked a lot about, I can't talk today. Every district is, somewhere else in the process. Some have gone back, some are hybrid, some are doing what we're doing. It was interesting to see the different approaches that our neighboring districts were taking and kind of feedback and troubleshoot with each other a little bit. One thing that I did want to just express my appreciation for is I'm getting the impression that many other school boards are substantially divided on their opinions about this. And while I don't think we're all necessarily on the same page with regards to going back to school, I think at least we're in the same chapter. It seems like some school districts or boards are working from different books. So I just want to express my appreciation that we're working together so collaboratively and seem to be, making decisions for the good of the district. That's all I really have.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Holgren. Next, the Holt Equity and Access team. I don't know if that's you, Ms. Dalton, or
yeah, I'm
you,
going to
Ms.
say a
Dozier.
few words and then I'll introduce my guests. Thank you. First of all, thanks to all the HEAT members and parents who have called in this evening. We appreciate your support and all of the work that you do and your patience with us as a district while we learn and grow and become better with your wisdom and your support. So thank you for all of your contributions. And Eli, thank you for calling in too. We will be better. We're working on it and there's some technical issues, but we will be better. Thank you for reminding us of that. This month, there are several important holidays and days of remembrance that we would like for you to consider and remember. January 4th was World Braille Day. January 18th, of course, is a Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday and day of service. January 19th is the National Day of Racial Healing, and January 27th is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Also, the month of January is National Poverty in America Awareness Month and Slavery and Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And also the month of January is National Mentoring Month. And on that note, I joined Miss Alona Troitsky and Miss Erin Umpstead last week for their mentoring meetup, which was a collaboration between junior high and high school students. It was a joy to spend time with them, these amazing teachers and students. I experienced their engaging and student-centered classes, and it was wonderful. Now for tonight's guest. Here with me this evening is Holt High School's history teacher and co-chair of the Heat System Analysis Subcommittee, Mr. Robert Dozier. Mr. Dozier has much to share with you this evening about his work and the systems analysis work. And so without further ado, Mr. Dozier, tell us all about the work that you're doing.
Well, can everyone hear me? I want to make sure that I can be heard. So thank you, Ms. Dalton. I appreciate that. Thank you and good evening to the board and everyone that is watching and listening, and especially the Diversity Club students, because I know they're watching. So I want to give a shout out to them, to our Diversity Club. I am Robert Dozier. I'm a 15-year employee of the district, and I also sit as chair of our systems analysis committee that is co-chaired by our superintendent, Dr. Hornak. I want to present to you today some findings from my spot as chair of systems analysis. But first, I want to make sure that everyone understands what that job entails for me. I have to look at us and check for imbalance within our systems. And I have to do the job of finding out the data on any imbalance within our systems. And then along with everyone else that's involved with the equity work through HEAT, come up with some suggestions to bring forth to the district to change things. What we found in taking a look throughout all of HEAT and all of our departments and committees so far is that there are some imbalances. And there are some major concerns about upfront imbalances for right now. There's concern with curriculum and all the other things that are present, but we also have a major concern that you heard about from some of the parents that called in today. So what I like to do is provide some visuals that I think will make things clearer for everyone. I know we have different types of learners, and I know that visuals sometimes will help us in getting an understanding of what people are trying to say. Because again, we're checking for imbalances within our systems. Now, before I show those that data, right, those visuals, I'd like to say this, that representation provides the motivation for manifestation. I'll say it again, that representation provides the motivation for manifestation. We say that our motto is to innovate, educate, and inspire. And I am here to say that none of that can happen without relationship. So I would like to share the specific data with you and have you to understand where this group is coming from with the information that you heard earlier today from some of our parents. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And I'd like to present that to you. The information that I'm presenting to you is actually, I'm just going to do the whole desktop here. It's actually public knowledge, but we are taking a look at it as a district within the HEAT committee, because once again, we're looking at our systems overall. So the website that I'm on right now is michiganschooldata.org, and I'm looking at our staff count, because the reason that we're looking at that, the biggest concern that came from HEAT is our hiring, our staff as you've heard earlier, okay? So when we take a look at our staff count, the first thing that I want to show you is this graph, right? So by the graph, you can see that things are completely out of balance just by looking at the graph. But what I like you to do is to look at the information that's below. What this is the staff count. All staff for Holt Public Schools broken down by ethnicity. So when you look at this, it doesn't look that bad because, you know, the numbers are for the total group of employees that we have. These are 2019 and 20 numbers, so pre-COVID numbers that you're looking at right now. We wanted to give the best representation we could for what we have available. As you can see, all staff members were showing that data, the specific data here is showing 1,104 employees for all staff. But as you go down and you see the makeup of the staff, you can see that we have one American Indian, in which I know one of our new board members has Native American background. So I like that to be like present as well. We have 15 Asian employees, 60 African American employees, 28 Hispanic of any race employees, and 19 of 2 or more races. But then when you get down to the bottom of this, you see that 981 out of our 1,104 employees are white. If you round that number, it equals to 90%. Now, we have a 60-40 split, as you heard earlier today. So what that means is white students to students of color, okay? Here's where it gets bigger. When you go in, you can manipulate this data and you can edit it. So what I want to do is I want to show you what we found that we have to take a look at and take into consideration because the data gets a little bit deeper. So when you go in and you manipulate the data, instead of going to all of our staff, okay, I'm going to go first to administration. So you can manipulate the data and go here, administration, and you're looking for head count, and you can do it by ethnicity. So I'm going to go here and go by race and ethnicity. I like ethnicity better because race is a social construct. It's not real. So I like ethnicity a little better. So when you do that and you update this report and you go in and you look at administrators 2019-20, it'll show you that administratively, if I move down in the data, oh, still working, I'm sorry, I apologize. It's not me, it's the computer. All right, now when we go to the data here, again, visually, which I think makes a more of an impact, you can see there are 2 colors here. The blue is for 2 or more races, okay? The aqua is for white. But let's get to the numbers there. When we look at administrators, 2019-20 for all staff, we have 39. 2 or more races, we have 2. End of the day, 37 are white. Again, that makes us 95% white as far as administrative staff, okay? So now I'd like you to see the manipulation of the data again, outside of administrators, now with teachers. So again, I'll go here, manipulate the data once again, outside of it being just administrators, and go to teachers. And I'll go by ethnicity once again. As this populates, what we see again is a great disparity in the graph. The picture alone tells the story, but we want to get better and we want to understand what the picture represents with the data. That's my job as systems analysis chair, to look at the data of our biggest concerns. So once we go down and get specific about what we see, in all staff, as far as teachers, we at that point in time, 2019-20, we had 359 teachers. Within the data, if you take a look and see here, 0 Native American, 2 Asian, 4 African American, 1 Hispanic of any race, and 2 of any more races. But again, at the end, we have 350 white teachers, which then makes us 97.5, or if you round it, 98% white. Again, I'll move up and manipulate the data once again, because I love our parapros. I don't know what I would do without some of the parapros that we have at the high school. I'm a high school teacher, and I have nothing but love for our paraeducators. So to all of them, I say hello and I salute you. So when we manipulate the data and we look at paraprofessionals, all staff, no, we want it by ethnicity. Once again, these are the people that work the closest, right, with our students. They're hand in hand. And the thing about this one that really makes us want to pay attention is because a lot of our diverse population are also caseload students, okay? And with that being said, if they have no relationship or can't build relationship with the people that are going to help them the most, then we have a problem. So once again, the graph tells the story, but let's get a little more specific in the data on the graph. 2019, 2020, when we look at paraprofessionals, for all staff, we have 120. You go down the list, no Native American, 1 Asian, 6 African American, 7 Hispanic, 1, 2 or more races, but then once again, 105 white paraeducators. When the biggest part of that population, well, I won't say the biggest, I would have to look at the numbers again, but a large part of that population is represented within our minority students, our students of color. And I changed what I said there about our minority students because we have been in partnership with Great Lakes Equity Center, and the vocabulary that we use means something. So I would encourage everyone to quit using our minority students and just say students of color. That is something that I've learned in being in partnership with Great Lakes Equity Center. So as we look at that, our students of color represent a big part of who our paraeducators are partnered with. Therefore, a relationship is needed there as well. Now, why am I presenting this information? I'm presenting it, number one, because it's a big concern. It's the biggest concern of one of our groups within HEAT. But I'm also doing it because when we take a look at things and we say that representation provides the motivation for manifestation, what are we trying to manifest? We're trying to manifest great citizens. We're trying to educate people. We're trying to educate our students. So what we do, just like a lot of other educational institutions, we look at output a lot instead of looking at the inputs, because the inputs matter. That's why this information, that's why this data matters. It matters because of the inputs, and the inputs is coming from what we've upheld as we talked in Great Lakes Equity Center this past week, which is our partner that we've partnered with. We are supporting whiteness. Our numbers tell us that that's what we're supporting. Okay, so in looking at our input and making changes to those people who are giving input and creating relationship, okay, if it's not working right now, then the data tells us that we need to make a change. It's just not, this is just not theory. This is not something just pulled out of space. This is something that is supported by research. It's also supported by by quantitative and qualitative data. So we cannot ignore it. We cannot go forward and just ignore this information and hope to be successful in innovating, educating, and inspiring without proper relationships. It just won't happen. Now, again, I started with representation provides the motivation for manifestation. And this is the manifestation of great students. Great students then become great citizens. They become well-informed, educated, citizens, okay? I want to share one particular thing from a student because I think this sums it up, right? And the biggest thing, right, that we've been working on so far as this information. And the student is a diversity club student at the high school. And I asked for permission to share what she said. I won't share her name, but I will share what she said. This student said, at Holt High School, not only do I have to prepare for class, but I have to prepare for who's teaching the class. I have to prepare for who's in the class, and I also have to prepare for who's in my school. Now, she was a student of color, so we can, just by those words, we can tell what she means by that. She has to get ready for class. She has to prepare for who's teaching her class, who's in her class, and who's in her school. Coming from one of the words of one of our clientele, our students, those who we love. Coming from myself, in reference to this data, I also have to say personally that this has been something that has been a part of my conversation for a long time. As a matter of fact, in my classroom right now, I've saved the staff pictures for at least the last 10 years. And I've saved it for a purpose, because as I look at those pictures, my face, for the most part, is one of maybe two faces of persons of color. For years, it was myself and Mr. Adebiko. Now, today, it is myself and Ms. Henderson. And on the recent picture, it is myself, and I'm speaking for the high school here, so I'm sorry, I'm not speaking about the other schools. But now it is myself, Ms. Henderson, and a few of our security guards, okay? So I've saved that for reasons, and those reasons are exactly what this data is telling us and what the parents had in their letter and what I found from my systems analysis perspective we have imbalance. So from a personal perspective, I like to say that walking into our PDs when we are in the building, it is extremely intimidating to walk in a room and find someone that you may not have any relationship with or to. Now, fortunately, because of who I am, I've been able to maneuver through that because I have cross-sectional things. Yes, I'm a Black male teacher, but I'm also a coach and things of that nature. So that puts me in relationship with others, in groups, in professional PDs. But I'd like you to think about walking into a room of at least 100 people and you being the only one who looks like you and can relate to you. I'd also like you to think about joining on a Zoom meeting and there being at least 100 people on that Zoom meeting and your face being the only one that you can relate to on that screen. That's why this information, this first set of information brought forth by the Systems Analysis Committee and the data, and also by the parents, that's why it is extremely important. So I would encourage the board to take a look at these numbers from the Systems Analysis Committee. We have began, like I said, our partnership with Great Lakes Equity Center. I am extremely excited about that because we are developing a plan and strategic goals to deal with things as such. But I'd like for the board to really consider taking a look deeper into this information as well and helping us come up with solutions to these issues. And before I go, I'm gonna give my best attempt here. I do believe the biblical story was Moses that had to remind God of his word and not kill the people before they went into the land of the wilderness. And in my attempt to recreate that for myself and us here, I wanna remind the board that you have brought forth a proclamation that we are extremely proud of, that racism has been considered a public health crisis in Holt Public Schools. But in reminding you of that, I'd like to say from a systems analysis perspective, what are we going to do about it? We've proclaimed it. The proclamation isn't the thing. What you do is the thing about it. I'd also like to remind the board of the strategic planning summary that was put forth for 2019 through 2024. There are two things that I'm concerned with in the 5 things that are listed there, the 5 categories or topics that are listed there. I'm concerned with the topic of learning environment and culture, and I'm also concerned with personnel and leadership. I'd like to remind the goal that in that, your goal statement is that Holt Public Schools will provide a more flexible learning environment for our diverse student body that supports each child's social, emotional, physical, and academic needs. It states that Holt Public Schools defines this as improve student outcomes by supporting the social, emotional, mental, physical, and academic needs of the whole child. And I just want to put my own little specific spin on that whole child. You are spirit, body, and soul. So when we say whole child, let's make sure that we include spirit, body, and soul. Also, point number 2 under that specific category says, become a culturally competent and responsible environment in which all students and employees feel respected and connected. Number 2, the second category from a systems analysis perspective that I'm concerned with, and which I just gave you the data about, is personnel and leadership. The goal statement from the district states that Holt Public Schools will be a destination district that attracts, develops, and supports exceptional and diverse personnel. And right now, our data says that we are not doing that. I understand that it is a strategic plan from 2019 to 2024, but I'd like to remind the board that we are now in 2021. That under that same category, the first bullet point is that we will value, nurture, support, and empower employees and assist them in developing the capacity to create a joyful environment in which to work and learn. Right now, I'm having a great time. I enjoy my job, but there are some strains on my job. Secondly, I'm thankful for it. Let me just say that as well. I'm thankful to the people that are responsible for me being here in Holt Public Schools, but it comes with great heavy burden as well. The second bullet point there says that Holt Public Schools will recruit qualified professional employees that mirror our diverse student population. Mirror our diverse student population. And right now, as you guys saw from the data that has been placed before you, we aren't doing a very good job of that. So in reminding the district of what strategic plan was put out to the public, 2019 to 2024, and also in reminding the district that one of the things that we want to do is recruit, lift up, support a diverse staff that right now, 2021, 2 years into a strategic plan summary that was put out to the public, we're not doing a very good job. So I would just ask that we increase our attention on this from a systems analysis perspective. And that concludes my presentation. I am open to any questions that you may have about the data that I've shown and the work from Systems Analysis Committee. And I don't want to leave this on a quote unquote bad note. I just would like to say that we are in partnership and we're making strides on these things, but I think that we can do a better job as we go into this work in 2021. I'd like to thank all of you for your time and allowing me to share today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dozier. Does any board members have any questions for Mr. Dozier? If not, appreciate your time and look forward to.
I don't have a question, but I'll, President Perry, I just want to say thanks for that presentation and the time you put into that, Mr. Dozier. It's eye-opening. It really is. As a new board member, I knew we had work to do, but that right there tells you very succinctly how much work has to be done and the effort that needs to be made. And you know, from my perspective, I can only speak for myself. I'm there to support you and help us start working towards achieving that diversity that you're speaking of. So thank you for that report, and thank you for the effort of Heat and everybody else that's doing the work out there. Great work. Thanks. Thank you.
All right. We'll move to the superintendent's report, Dr. Warnack.
Thank you, President Perry. I'd also like to echo what I've heard tonight. I appreciate the feedback we've received from our public, and I work very closely with Mr. Dozier as I'm his co-chair. I tend to follow, and I'm learning from him, and I appreciate all he has to offer. To that end, much of the academic work that is captured by our curriculum directors. As a result, I'm going to avoid duplicating that. You have seen the bulk of, well, you've seen my presentation here to you. I hope to provide you student exit survey data at the February board meeting, the raw data for you to review. I loved what I heard, that we are in business to create great citizens, and that's, you know, that's our commitment, and we will continue to do so. As I keep moving my way through, a few additional items. District training remains a priority for us, and should be completed by the end of the month across the district. We continue to try to make the invisible visible. So we have a series of video messages called Around the Horn that continue to be published, and those are most recently specific to our career and technical education courses. Special recognition to the employees who have gone above and beyond to make a difference during these unprecedented times. Our food service continues to serve over 10,000 meals on Mondays. It's pretty amazing. I'd also like to acknowledge our public, who donated a great deal of food to help us with a second distribution, which was held on December 18th. So December 14th was the Monday where we did about 10,000 meals. On December 18th, we did a secondary distribution, which included giving each family about a 14-day supply of food. And you know, it was just wonderful to see. And then on December 28th, the First Presbyterian Church in Holt offered another pickup point. And then finally, speaking of food, 2 additional little free pantries are being built and will be installed in Diamonddale. We continue to meet with our bond partners. I mentioned that earlier. And then we are actively engaged. Mr. Dozier spoke about this with the Midwest and Plains Equity Assistance Center. We have multiple meetings with them, and we met 2 full days last week for equity-oriented strategic planning. We continue to host office hours to try to encourage staff that have questions to contact us so that we can either respond or research, and that's gone fairly well so far. And at this point, that completes the superintendent's report, unless you have questions.
Any questions? If not, we'll move to curriculum and Mr. Netzel and Ms. Cotter.
Good evening, board. We are starting tonight with the updates to the course guides. I shared with you the course guides in their entirety in December with the hopes that you'd have some time to look at them. I'm going to share my screen so that everyone can see the summary document of those course guides. It's a little easier than year to year where we're hanging on to those big old packets. Just by the nature of the school year and what's on teachers' plates, I'm not seeing a ton of change to the course guides this year. We will need to adopt the changes that are made, knowing that scheduling is coming up and we will talk about the scheduling timeline. We can either vote to adopt tonight or vote to approve the scheduling timelines with edits to the course guides, depending on your feedback. The basic changes up at the top, I think can you guys see my screen? Yeah, okay. Up at the top, you can see some of it was just the logistics of changing the dates, teacher sponsors for particular clubs and any updated names of staff. And then I broke down the specific changes to the junior high and high school. The junior high, just to make a little clearer, currently there is a 7th grade health class and a 7th grade PE class that each run about 9 weeks. When we went to set up Power School, the system does ask us to choose between terms and semesters. And we generally run on a semester schedule, 7-12, except for these 2 classes. And just the way the system is set up, it does not like that we have 2 classes that are different than every other class when it comes to calculating grades and storing them for transcripts. So we're trying to figure out a way to run those 2 9-week classes as one partner class where the students would swap between the 2 teachers. So the courses themselves are not changing. It's the way they would be reported in Power School. It would be a 1 semester class where both teachers are co-teachers and they swap kids at the 9-week mark. We're still working out how to make that happen in Power School, but I just wanted you to know the context around that, that it isn't actually a change to anything that would be taught to students or any requirements for students. There's also information that's been added about Power School to both manuals. The pages are on there for you, and I think the changes are in red. And per a recommendation that one of you sent me, I replicated the civil rights statement in the high school manual, just in the junior high manuals they matched. The high school manual had a little more information in it, had updated, it had Dr. Quinlan's information in there. So those now are identical. So overall, those are the changes for the junior high. The scheduling timeline down below is fairly identical to years before. A recommendation that I received from one of you that I thought was brilliant is to also have a parent night for the incoming 8th graders, because they did not get their parent night last spring. Everything was canceled. And for students who would be coming into the building as 8th graders in the fall, it would make sense to have an orientation for them as well. So we had talked about that also for our 9th graders who've never been in the building. We would have an orientation for our 8th graders coming up as 9th graders, but we may also want to do that for our 9th graders that did not have the same orientation they would have the previous spring. So that would be added to that timeline per that feedback. Any questions on the junior high section? All right, high school, I included a lot of the updates for you there, all of the updates for you there. As far as course content and courses offered, the one of note is the addition of the aviation courses. Lucas Schraben has been working with our partner. We had been doing some aviation, almost like a dual enrollment club, I guess it was like an aviation club, where students were getting some coursework. It was about 4 to 6 students, I believe, through that partnership. And we're looking to bring that internal as a CTE course. The outline of the course is in the course guides. You can see it. It will not require any additional FTE, and I believe most of the materials are free as being part of the program. And we'd just be shifting around a little bit of our courses to make it fit within the business department. That's the only new course that would be offered. Everything else that you see in that list is an update, either an edit to some misinformation or a link to new information. Any questions regarding the high school course guide?
I have a few issues. When I look at the procedures for use of counseling service, is that currently accurate, or is it now an online request that signifies that the student wants to meet with the counselor? I was thinking maybe that's different, even in person, maybe.
Are you on page 4?
I just copied and pasted it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Procedures for use.
Services.
So at this point, I know the junior high has adopted a digital scheduling process even when they're face-to-face. I'm not sure if the high school's adopted the same process. Obviously, right now, they have a digital process available through their Google Classroom. My hunch is they'll probably continue with that process when we come back face-to-face.
Right. Also, when we look at the retake and replace policy, I just want to make it clear that students understand that that's not done automatically, that it does require them to fill out a form. And so I want to make sure that we're doing a great job of informing them about that form and making the form available to them. It would be a shame if they didn't benefit from it because they didn't understand that. It reads a little clunky, but it's a complicated process. So I don't know if there's a way that we can, edit it to be less confusing, but I just want to make sure that we really hit home the idea that that form needs to, where to access the form. Maybe we could write that there.
Well, now that it's digital, I wonder if we can just link to the form directly.
That would be awesome.
I put that in my notes to work with Mr. Willard on that.
Okay. Also, do we still reclassify students for student class status?
We do. My understanding is that we reclassify in order for appropriate state testing by grade level.
Okay, that's it. I wasn't sure if that still happened. And then the same thing we talk about every year, that testing out versus students who have a home or heritage language. I still would love to see us present an option for students to get the language credit for their home or heritage language, which is really different than testing out of a class, particularly if their home or heritage language is a language for which we don't have a class.
Sure.
I know that the Michigan curriculum does allow for that. It says students can meet the world language requirement through learning beyond the K-12 classroom, and home and heritage languages is listed there, as well as other life experiences as determined by the district. So yeah. I would love to see us separate the home and heritage language from the testing out of a class, because I do think those are different things. And I know we've talked about investigating having the diploma that has that on it, but I think we're doing a disservice to our students who for whom either English is not their first language or they've grown up with another language as well in the home. And I'd like to provide an opportunity for them to benefit, including sign language, for them to benefit from that.
And now that you bring it up, I feel like it might have been last year that we had a conversation with the modern language department about that process, especially like you'd said, for classes that we don't offer at the high school. And I'm fairly certain they have a process for bringing someone in some sort of standard of proficiency that the state provides guidance on that isn't the same as what we have in our test out options. So I will look into adding some language about that as you suggested.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Any other questions in the high school course guide? All right, and then the tentative high school scheduling timeline is below that as well. It is not any different than in previous years, other than it may be digital this year, depending on our timeline to return. So at this point, I believe last year how we did this as well was a vote to adopt with the recommended changes. And then I brought the final version to you in February for your review to ensure that the changes were made as requested.
So Ms. Cotter, you'd like us to approve both the junior high and the high school together?
That is your decision. As long as they both get approved, I'm okay with it together or separately.
I'll make a motion that we move to approve the junior high and high school course guides with the noted revisions.
I'll support.
I have a first and a second. Any discussion?
I will say just that last comment about like scheduling online or digital, it occurs to me that we'll probably have some students who remain digital through the year, so that both options would probably be a good thing to keep in mind, regardless of when or if we go back. Absolutely.
Any additional discussion? All right, Ms. Bureau, if we could do a roll call.
Jones,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Bureau, yes, Halgren,
Yes.
Dalton,
Yes.
and Robel.
Yes.
Thank you, board. And then moving on to our next item is our monthly updates on the continuity of learning plan. There are only a couple slight edits since the one we sent you last week. We already did this slide here. So we'll go right into the academics portion.
Good evening, board. So I realize that you guys have the whole packet of information in front of you. So I'd just like to kind of highlight a few pieces on the academic part and see if you have any questions. In the second portion of the plan, you'll notice that how are students progressing towards the goals. And I wanted to share with you that we have worked with our teacher leader teams to figure out some adjustments in the process to benchmark screen our students here as we return to school. As I shared with you guys in October, I believe we ran into some barriers where we struggled to be able to get our students assessed. So we have been problem solving around that, and we will begin benchmarking here in the next week or so. One thing that I want to bring to your attention, if you follow the mandates that are put upon each district with the extended COVID learning, is by February 1st, we have been asked to report out to our Board of Education our growth data from the fall to the winter. I want to share with you that due to the window of testing and trying to get as many students assessed as possible, and then also being accurate with our growth data, we will report out to you guys at our board meeting in March, just because of our testing window. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So that is one piece with the academic portion of this section. Are there any questions with the academic part? All right, Jess, if you want to slide to the next part. The next section is very, very familiar as well. It's just the continuation of our tracking of our attendance. And so you'll see for the TK through sixth grade that we have added 3 weeks of updated attendance. And then if you transition to the secondary, you will notice that we added 4 weeks of attendance, and we will continue to update that as we gain the data, access the data. So any questions with the attendance piece? All righty. I think that goes to the next part with the health metrics, Jess.
All right, in this slide, nothing has changed from last month. It's just a reminder that these are the metrics that we had discussed and adopted to use as a framework for deciding on a return to in-person instruction. They are being housed weekly every Friday. We create a new dashboard and upload it to the reopening badge on the hpsk12.net website. So the public can access these data points updated every Friday. This is a little different than what's in your current packet because I did the new metrics on Friday, the 8th. And I believe the most recent you have is from the 1st. So this is a side-by-side comparison from week to week of how the data is looking for the county, for the region, and for the state. You will notice that a couple of the data points are trending back in the direction that we are aiming for. And while they may be improving in some data points, we are seeing still some pretty critical data in other data points. So unfortunately, not a ton of movement overall with the data. Although I am seeing some trends that indicate potentially seeing some data in the future that will be more positive for us. Alongside that data in our conversations is the discussion of when we will bring students back in person and how we are preparing the buildings for that. And last month, we'd explored a little bit the conversation around being prepared for when that happens. And I wanted to first start by clarifying, and I'm open to questions on this to help make it as clear as possible to our community as well, that the question that was asked in the survey that went out to families was if Holt Public Schools transitioned to a 4-day-a-week in-person instruction, which of the following is your most likely course of action? And then you all can see the responses down there that about 50%. This was, I just want to clarify too, for full transparency, that the survey asked for child 1 and then child 2 and then child 3 all the way up to child 6 for families that have more than one child. I have a pie graph like this for each child because that's how the survey was set up. This pie graph represents 2,315 students. There are still another 1,200 students represented by the other pie graphs. I can share those all with you so you can see exactly what they are. I can communicate, I didn't put all 6 on here because they were roughly the same breakdown, because it's roughly the same families. But I can get you the exact numbers if you'd like. Most of them broke down where 50% of families said if we were to go back to a 4-day week, they would send their student to learn in person only if there were strict health and safety guidelines in place. So that 50% is really kind of where we're taking our lead from in spending our time determining how we can best create these safety protocols and health protocols within the buildings, which Steve will talk about in a moment. Another 30% of our families said that they would choose to keep their student at home and continue remote learning, even if we had the strict safety protocols in place. In talking with families, it does sound like some have determined to keep their students home for the full year, if only just for the continuity of the experience. And then finally, this has 17.5%, it's roughly 20% on the other survey pie graphs, said they would send their student to learn in person without a lot of concern for the health and safety protocols. So still interested in coming back into the buildings. So we, at this point, are focusing our energy on getting the buildings ready for students and staff to return, looking at our staffing to ensure we have the staffing needed, and that includes transportation, food service, security guards, all the support staff, recess, all the support staff we need to function in an in-person way. So I wanted to clarify that as the question for families, and that based on that, we are working towards getting buildings ready to bring students back. Any questions on those talking points?
Where are we with transportation at this point? Because that was something that had come up in the ISOA meeting, was that the busing was one of the hardest moving pieces to actually get moving. So do you have an idea where we are with bus drivers, or are we planning on going back and asking parents to find ways to get their kids to school on their own? I don't know what's the status with that.
I can speak to that. Donna, our transportation director, is setting up a procedure to contact every family and find out their intentions regarding transportation. Now, as far as then the staffing and infrastructure around those decisions, I think probably Kim would be better to speak to that than I could.
Thanks, Jessica. We do have that calling started today. There is a script, and we have the bus drivers that are working right now on our food buses in Peckham and Wilson Talent Center. They are spending time, part of their day, also calling and asking them and telling them the protocols that we do have, and that social distancing would not be achieved on a bus. So we are telling them straightforward what the bus will be like. We have 5 routes right now, 21 routes in total, but 5 route drivers and 1 sub driver, so 6 open spaces. Donna has had lots of conversation with them. HR is in conversation with the union in how to bring them back and what we do with them before school is starting. But as we get closer, Donna is having a harder time securing the position with the people. So they applied, they are qualified, and as we get closer, she's having a harder time, let's just say, closing the deal. So for various reasons, but that's where we are with the bus drivers.
So I don't want to be a wet blanket here. What's the plan if we have to have bus drivers, right? If we're going to have buses. So if these hiring things can't go through or don't go through, is there a backup plan?
So there is a law at the state of Michigan that says that if you are going to transport, you have to give everyone equal access to transportation.
Right.
And if you're going to transport, you can just say, I'm going to transport kindergartners and first graders, and that's okay. But you can't do a portion of the second graders or a portion, so you have to dictate those. So I think at this point in time, HR is truly working with Donna to try to get that onboarding plan. And actually it does come down to when do we open up schools too, because there's another law that you can't hire people while they're not working. We can't just hire and have them sit there also within the state of Michigan, and you have to have them doing significant work, or they cannot be, we cannot pay their retirements for them, their retirement portion for them if they're not working also. So you can't just pay people. So there's lots that we're working on, and it's going to be a horse race to the end to make that happen.
And currently we are working with transportation in designing building schedules. I'm sure you're all aware that the idea of a daily schedule is tricky with the different needs of our different stakeholder groups. Transportation, because of Wilson Talent Center and Peckham and other services and programs we offer for students, transportation is kind of pigeonholed into picking up and dropping students off certain times of the day. So we're working with transportation and with our associations and different stakeholder groups to try to design a schedule that kind of supports the needs of all the different groups coming back. Keeping in mind, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, that when we come back face to face, we will be asking teachers to teach both remotely and in person. So if Ty Cotter is teaching 27 fourth graders right now, he may have 20 in his classroom and 7 remote. And we'll be working with our teachers on what does that look like? We're going to try to envision that in a way that creates the least stress as possible, but it's going to be something we've never done before. As a part of that, we're trying to be attentive to planning and collaboration time and PD and all the things that teachers will need to pull that off, which means being creative with the schedule. So we want you guys to know that there's a lot of conversation happening and a lot of attention to all the different variables that come together to design a school schedule. It turns out it's one of the hardest puzzles we've had in this whole experience so far. But we're working with food service, working with transportation, working with teachers to try to get something set up as soon as possible. Because once we get the schedule set, then transportation can start letting families know when drop off and pickup will be. They can get the wheels turning on all of that. So the work is moving in that direction. And maybe Steve can talk a little bit about what's happening at the building level to prepare buildings.
Absolutely. So thank you, Jess. One of the goals that we have committed to is assuring that our buildings are ready when it comes to the space to return face-to-face whenever that shall be. So some of the things that are happening that I want to share with this group is that we are continuing to meet with our return to learn team and reviewing the protocols that we have another meeting set up. We continue to adjust the protocols. Building principals have started to work with their leadership teams to talk about, here are the protocols, what does implementation look like in our building for these protocols? Whether some grade levels, some building or some levels will be eating like lunch and breakfast in the classroom, where some will be going to a neutral space. And so protocols are great, but implementation is where you really get into the adjustments what's for your building. We have set up starting the week of January 25th. All of our buildings have a scheduled walkthrough. We have 11 members. Might have to break up into 2 groups. We'll look at the next order, but we have 11 members that will be walking through buildings with the checklist and giving feedback to assure that we are meeting the expectations of those protocols. And I wanted to kind of share some of the group members. We have a core team from the building, which will be like the principal, the secretary, a classroom teacher from the building, and the custodian. We have some district level membership. We'll have union representation from the teaching group, the para group. We'll also have facilities, food service, Jess or I. We will also have Dr. Hallgren, I believe, is the board rep that's going to be traveling around with us for that week. And so we have begun that process as well. That's something we've talked about early on to assure that we got lots of different eyes on our building to make sure they're ready. So again, as Jess said, we continue to tweak those protocols to assure, when we look at that survey, that we have strict health and safety guidelines that are enforced. And so we're doing all we can to commit to that statement that we made there. So those are some of the things. In addition, I know Jess has, you guys referenced with transportation, we're also looking, as you'll see postings where we're committed to long-term subs in each of our buildings to help support during this time with our shortage. We're looking at how do we use our lunch and recess supervisors throughout the day to support our systems. And then also thinking very strategically about the office and what type of extra secretary support will be needed as well. So, we're in the trenches and it's going to be a haul all the way to the end, but we're working on it to get to the end. So any questions on any of that?
Quick questions. First, when we look at those metrics, can you tell me what the special ed in-person learning labs, where does that fall in there? Like, will they be meeting under conditions of the metrics, or are they meeting at a certain time frame, or what is the plan for that?
We have a separate document that we've designed with the HEA that has athletics, clubs, and then it has special education, Wi-Fi labs, and ELL services, and then finally general student population. And within that, we've defined which of these metrics should be met in order to bring those small groups back. So it's still a somewhat objective process. For our special education students, for example, the metric, it's basically just because it's a smaller group and we're able to provide more safety protocols for them. They need to meet one category in the AIM, one target in the AIM category for both the county and the region, and I believe one in the consider range for the county and the region. I believe that's what it is. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's a long.
And that's okay. I guess I just wondered, is that available to those teachers and to those families? Are they aware of those metrics?
I would have to ask our special education director what's been explicitly shared. I believe that I was told that the metrics were shared with the teachers.
Okay. I just want to, as we hear parents talking about it, I just want to make sure everyone understands we're just plugging the numbers into the metrics. We've adopted these metrics. So I just wanted to make sure that we covered all of our bases on that. I guess my other question is about the strict safety protocols. I hear you say that you're planning, and maybe that's as good of an answer as I'm going to get, but if you talk about Ty Cotter, let's say he has 27 students in his class, and let's say all 27 want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Do we consider that the strict safety protocol if we've got 27 kids in a classroom? I mean, So, I mean, it wouldn't be social distancing probably, I'm guessing, unless he has the luxury classroom,
Right.
right? I mean, like, how are we looking at that?
We've been, I feel like, tried to be very transparent from the beginning that we would not be able to do the 6-foot social distancing recommendation. And Steve can talk more of this too, especially at the elementary level. But I think just being honest about that, classrooms vary widely from building to building. I think I've mentioned to this group before, my classroom at the high school was bigger than my first apartment. So if there's 25 students in a room and we remove all extra furniture, which is one of the protocols, is to remove everything that isn't desks, that moving them as far apart as possible, you'll get more distance between desks than you would in Ty Cotter's classroom, which is a smaller, older building. So definitely want to be honest about that right up front, that when we talk about safety and health protocols, it's about what can we do in those spaces. It's the desk shields, it's the sanitizer, it's the spray, it's the entrance and exits being defined and having specific times for pickup. It's not having kids line up in the hall, not having them line up outside. So
what about secondary with the hall, like passing times and stuff?
Well, that's a part of the schedule we're still working out. Is it feasible? We talked about if you release half the kids at one time and half another, then you have them waiting at rooms where kids are still sitting. And so we're talking through like what would be the safest way. We have discussed having extra adults in the hall, hiring more support staff, marking the hallways with right side and left side and trying to walk with as much distance as possible, staggering release times and whatnot. But we haven't landed exactly on how that will work. Secondary is the trickiest piece.
Right. And I know there's no easy answer. I know there isn't an answer, right? I'm asking because last month, you know, that when we asked that question and there were 3 possible answers, the middle answer was if strict safety protocols are in place. And that's what I asked about last month. Can we really ensure strict safety protocols? And I mean, it seems like the answer is kinda. Right? And so I just want to be clear with parents that while we look at studies that say it's safe to return to school if strict safety protocols are in place, we may not have the space or the numbers to actually have, every strict safety protocol in place.
And I think that's why it's so important, Amy, that we don't bring the students into the building till the metrics look the way we've defined them. Because the only way what we're planning will work is if the data looks the way we're anticipating it will at that time. I'm sorry, Dr. Leonard. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, and I just want to kind of piggyback on what Trustee Dalton is saying. Is that I looked at that pie chart which had that 59. Could we go back to that real quickly? Yeah, or 49.4%. My concern when I was looking at that is everybody who answered that has different perspective of what strict health and safety guidelines are. Yeah. And I guarantee you mine are probably not the same as someone else's. Mine are probably a little higher than some and a little less. And I guess that's my concern in asking that question is I don't know if it really gives us a true read. Like, is 30% of those people are saying they have to have masks, you have to have 6 foot of distance, you have to have this, you have to have that, or we won't go back. To me, it's a misleading percentage because I've heard some people say like we have 70% of the community that wants to go back. Is that accurate representation or not? And I understand. I just my understanding of strict health and safety guidelines I think is a little different. I think that's the point that probably Trustee Dalton's trying to make there, and I'd piggyback on that is is it just masks or is it mask plus? And I think that's a difficult, challenging answer.
And honestly, that's one of the reasons why, as difficult as it will be for us logistically to allow parents to change their mind, I know a lot of districts are not allowing parents to change their mind, that they're saying you're signing up for the whole semester delivery this way or not. And I understand that from an administrative endpoint, like the bureaucracy of this is insane. But like you said, Dr. Leonard, people won't know what it looks like until we can see it. And I don't even know until I can see it, the number of kids and do the protocols work. And it takes a while to tweak these things. We need to give parents some flexibility to determine, yep, I'm good with this, or I'm still uncomfortable, and decide what they want to do once we're back full in swing. So I think we're trying to keep that in mind, that it is a very subjective and personal decision, and we want to work with families as best we can so that they feel comfortable every day.
Just to add to that, and Trustee Dalton, I think it ties into your initial responses. You know, we've been very, I think, transparent since the beginning. It's not going to be back to normal school. You know, and once we get more into that schedule and we can move a little further with that, that will be evident that it's going to look very different. And just had a conversation today with the principal, you know, talking about what pillars do we want to stand with. And one of them is mitigating the cohorts at the elementary. That's why they're eating breakfast in the classroom, lunch, recesses with their teacher. You know, so we have to think strategically about our support services, how many people go in and out of the classrooms. And so, you know, we have to pick a couple of things that we really want to say, this is what we're, you know, this is where we're standing our decisions on. And, you know, social distancing, it's probably not a thing with 4 or 5 year olds, right? It's going to be very difficult. So.
And regarding that, and I know we've talked about busing, but the other option that we always use as a family was childcare. And so I'm guessing, you know, we haven't had an answer about that, but social distancing would probably be difficult there because of staffing and how many kids might need it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's part of our conversation, Ms. Jones, is the childcare and the staff to be able to support the childcare, and then the interaction of different cohorts when they come to childcare. So that's our everyday conversation with Heather.
Steve or Jessica, can you speak to the vaccine? Is that available to all teachers, all employees? And maybe that's a question for Dr. Hornak.
I think Dr. Hornak probably knows.
I think he's got this one.
Great question, President Perry. The Ingham County schools have been tiered into 3 different groups. The first tier, which started getting vaccinated today, happen to be those schools that are offering face-to-face instruction. I did hear from a couple superintendents who had gone through that process today that said it was very well organized. It's being conducted at the MSU Pavilion. Anyway, the health department in coordination with the ISD will release a sign up. And as soon as we get that, we will push it out, and then teachers and staff, including our high tech as well as edu staff employees, will be included in that. And that is happening like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of each week. So those that are in group 1B. Well, moving forward, there is a second tier of schools that are scheduled to start back before us. And so they are going to be potentially next week. I did talk to the superintendent of schools for the intermediate school district and said, hey, we've had several requests, to which he said, I don't know if we can accommodate those, but you know, we know we have childcare that's back in session. You know, can we advance those students? If we have learning labs return, excuse me, those teachers. If we have learning labs return, can we get those employees out there? And he said, you know, start a list, but too early to tell. The third tier of schools, which includes Holt Public Schools, Lansing, and I believe Waverly, are scheduled for either late January or the first week of February. So we're on track. It sounds like it went very, very well at the MSU Pavilion today. And to that end, I'm grateful we're in a virtual delivery right now, because potentially getting substitutes while you're teaching or serving kids face-to-face could be tricky.
Can I ask a quick question?
You bet.
So I was watching the local news tonight, and I know they're not always necessarily as on top of it as you might be, because I think you might talk to Dr. Vail more frequently. They said that there was something, this tier was like 80, I'm classically bad with numbers, but like 85,000 people with a capacity of vaccinating 2,000 a day is what they said on the local news, which doesn't sound good for getting through that, all of the K-12 faculty and staff before our scheduled date, right? Ideally we'd want to have 2 vaccinations before we start. That's obviously not going to happen. At least to get 1 vaccination and maybe 10 or 14 days before we start would make me a lot more comfortable. Are they increasing capacity? Do they think they can work through us in time for us to start? What's that look like?
Yep. So I do not have a real direct answer for you, Dr. Hallgren, but I can tell you today that the intermediate school district continued to reinforce that it will be late January or the first week of February. So it sounds like the pavilion is open for educators on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So I would estimate, we're really looking at February 1, 2, and 3 with the outside shot at January 25, 26, 27.
Has there been any requests for more assistance, volunteers? I mean, I don't have a medical degree. I got a PhD at a medical school. I might be able to like fill a syringe or something. Has there been any request for that kind of work? Is that a thing that we can contribute to, or do you know?
I can check on that for you, and I may put you to work, but I don't know the answer.
I just think that I don't know, and I haven't heard, I don't watch the local news very often, but I haven't seen a push from the health department to recruit volunteers or people. It seems like they're trying to do it with the people they already have. And I know that if they asked for volunteers, that they would find volunteers. Whether they would be suitable and all of the malpractice, et cetera, insurance things that might have to be done, I don't know, but I know that there are volunteers out there for them to work.
Right on.
I have two more questions, I guess. To be clear, we don't have a date of return, right? We're waiting for the metrics to be triggered. Is that correct?
We have a recommendation for no sooner than, and it's the same dates as last month, and it's based on that's the soonest that the data could look the way we would need it to look.
Gotcha. My other question is probably for Dr. Quinlan. What's the story with the FFCRA, the employee paid leave rights? Because I guess my concern is if we get a case and teachers have to be quarantined, that a quarantine could plow through all your sick days right there and not even be sick, right? So do we have any sense if there's going to be movement on that?
So most of the FFCRA leaves did expire. We are still working through as a team and with our employee groups in units as to what we might be able to do in terms of if there's a quarantine or especially if it's due to a school exposure. So those are the things we're working on right now as a team.
Okay. That's going to be an important thing that I want to keep watching as we work through this, because it's likely that people could be quarantined even more than one time possibly. So I just want to make sure that we're being fair about that. Okay,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I had another question, and I guess it's open to the administration team, but I'm hearing that we can meet those February 16th and February 22nd dates with the work that we're doing today. I mean, it sounds like it might be a little bit bumpy, but we're on target to hit those dates. Is that a correct understanding?
I would say we are on target to have our infrastructure prepared for students' return those weeks. And like you said, it may be bumpy, especially with those transportation hires, but as far as having the buildings prepared and our staffing prepared, that's what we are working on right now, is to be ready for that date with no guarantee that that date is the date.
But if this board was to say, let's return the 16th and the 22nd respectively.
We are preparing for that.
Okay.
We are preparing, yeah.
And we need to, I assume that we need to make that decision before we return. So are we making that decision today? Do we have plans for a special meeting or something like that to make that decision? What's the time between us saying go back and opening day?
Our goal is to have everything ready for the 16th and 22nd. The data right now would not preclude or would not indicate that we would be making that decision tonight, because we can't predict the future of what the data will look like. I would anticipate that, I believe the February board meeting is the That's a pretty quick turnaround. You know, if the board would wish to have a special meeting prior to that, of course, that's in your wheelhouse to decide. But we do plan on talking again at the February 8th meeting.
Well, I think whenever we meet, we still can't see the future, right? We're talking about seeing the future 5 weeks in advance or 2 weeks.
It's going to be a quick turnaround. I mean, my hunch is when it comes down to it, the data's looking better. We have to be ready at the buildings. That's the only variable we can control is staffing and having the buildings ready. We have to be ready so that when you make the call, we can go.
So as far as calling a special meeting, you know, what's your most comfortable date or days out from that return date that you both can have the information in your hands that you need to make that decision, plus enough time to finish whatever you need to do?
I mean, I think it's also interdependent, Mr. Perry, on food service and transportation of their runway. And, you know, from what I have heard listening to those departments, a couple weeks is the runway that they need. And I know Kim can clarify because she works a little closer, but, you know, they will need a runway to be able to prep in their areas. Is that about right, Kim? Or
You got to order food.
yeah. So, you know, that runway of 2 weeks will, I mean, you know, just our goal is by January 25th, when those buildings have their walkthroughs, we're ready to go, you know, so it's the runway that they need.
We are, this is Kim Cosgrove, and we are in a little of a chicken and an egg situation, because today, if you're going to start on the 16th, we need to start hiring transportation people right now to start on the 1st, so that we can make sure that we have their fingerprints in, they've done all their PD, we have the routes settled, we have all of those things. And so today is the 11th, and it will take this long to get them through the things that they need to do. Secure them. They have 2 weeks on some of the bus drivers. They have 2 weeks for letter of resignation. And so it takes 2 weeks for that, and then you get them in. If we don't start, then we have a problem. Because we'll have our 2 weeks, but then the next 2 weeks after, let's just say that it gets pushed out to March 1st, then we have people who we have brought back to work, but we don't have any work for them to do. And so those are parts of the discussion of what are the PD that we have. So it is hard to say 1 month. So if you are on the 11th, are you going to start on the 16th of February? And what do we do? The other thing is, and I will defer to Erin and Peter, is that if it was said on today, there to get everyone back who needs to be hired, whether it be food service or child care, and child care is dependent on the time. Transportation is dependent on the time that the kids come and go to school. I don't think that it could just take 2 weeks and everybody could be pushed through HR.
So what I'm hearing is you would be more comfortable, and this might work better if we made a decision, in other words, that we are going to start on a date, and we do that as soon as possible, not waiting until February to make this call, right?
And maybe we don't, maybe Mr. Perry, President Perry had already said, do we need a special meeting? Maybe you can't wait for a month, but maybe in 2 more weeks, we'll have 2 more weeks worth of data, or 3 more weeks worth of data, and then you might be able to have that.
So in 2 weeks, do you have the lead time necessary to get these people onboarded, et cetera? Maybe that's a Erin, Dr. Quinlan question. I don't know. But I just don't, what I don't want to do is say we're going back and then not have enough time to get everybody together, right? That would not be a good thing.
And as much as it, you know, I'd like things to be neat and tidy and have some of these things checked off. I mean, the transition back to in person is weighing on all of us very heavily. I also know we've made a commitment to making sure the data looks a certain way, or it's all kind of for nothing because the procedures and protocols don't hold up if the data is the way it is, and our staff, we're dealing with quarantines and sickness. And so it kind of like Kim said, chicken or egg, it's tough, but I definitely at this point just pulled the data back up. We just know we have too many data points that are looking pretty awful to say for sure the 16th right now. But that doesn't mean, with the vaccines and with the government, I don't know, that doesn't mean the data won't look very different in a couple weeks, or I just don't know.
Yeah, I think if you look at those graphs on our website, those are even better, because you go back to, I don't know when you started graphing that, in October, maybe November, but all those graphs are trending down. It's still high, but it's moving in that direction.
That is and maybe this is a good thing for the public to see too, how easy it is to find these. So you just go to
Yeah, those graphs are just awesome.
They're nice to see, and what's different than what I'm showing you when we meet at the board is down below this, which is what I snapshot for you guys every time we meet, are the graphs that show where have we been with this data. And this is why I say, even though the data is uncomfortable right now, we're seeing some trends, and it's hard to say, is this an impact from holidays and what might happen over the next several weeks. But we're watching those lines and looking for trends. And, I just feel like it's a little too early to know for sure, this data being January 8th, what it might look like February 16th.
So what if President Perry would be the one to call the meeting, but do we try to do a meeting 2 weeks from now, when we are a little closer? Because I don't, the longer we go, if we go much longer than 2 weeks, it sounds like we're waiting until March. I don't see a way to push the decision off too far and still be able to start with the dates that we were working with. Not, they're not fixed in stone, but that is a target.
Well, it sounds like there's no way that staff can be fully immunized until March anyway. Is that correct?
I can't see a way that it's going to happen unless the health department scales up exponentially very soon.
For me, that matters between that and the employee paid leave rights. Those are two really big issues the data also is not currently telling us the time is right to go back, but those are issues too, because I think it's unreasonable to send staff back when they're not fully immunized and they don't have leave rights.
Well, we were bringing to the table just an identical slide from last month, but also on our minds was, does it make sense to have more frequent conversations now that we're getting closer to those dates? It's just so hard when I only see you once a month to say this is it for the next month. So that's, of course, up to you and your discretion on when we meet again to discuss it. At this point, we were going to hold steady with what we had.
Can I ask a question to just clarify in my mind how these dates were picked? That the original date, we were thinking January 16th or January something, and then they got moved back to February. The January date was to coincide with the beginning of the marking period. When we're in February 16th, we're already a month into the marking period, right? There's no logical start point after next week.
These
the
dates,
beginning of the
I
semester.
believe, bookended President's Day weekend.
So there was a holiday
There was
weekend.
a little break there. And one thing that we had hoped to do is bring the younger grades back first, so we can invest all our energy in just focusing on a smaller number of grades for a week, and then fold in the secondary grades.
Well,
So,
I like the staggered start. I'm just wondering if there's a penalty, like, other than the fact that the kids aren't going to be back in school, but there's not an administrative marking period. We've got some
Correct.
sort of
Correct.
grade dates to hit if we were to move it back, let's say, to March 1st or to February 22nd for the little kids and the next week for the older kids. There's no penalty for that.
correct. There are no structural reasons that wouldn't work that I can think of.
All right, any other questions or discussion? I think we need to have a public comment period before we make a vote to approve our plan.
Sure do.
And your plan would be to just reaffirm the two dates of February 16th and the 22nd at this point in time.
At this time.
Okay.
And there wouldn't be any benefit to pushing those back a week. Or would there?
It gives us more cushion with the data. At this point, though, because we are uncertain where the data will be in several weeks, it was difficult to, I guess what it was, it was difficult to not just pick an arbitrary day.
And just keep changing our days.
Right,
more
that's the
confusing
hard
than
part.
to-
We didn't want to just keep changing the day when really it's the data that will drive the date, not necessarily the date we put on paper.
Guess I'm confused though, because didn't Kim say that if we don't give that lead time, that will be a problem? Like, so let's say we agree to adopt this the way that it is. Then what? Let's say the data doesn't support that return and we do have to push it back. Then what does that mean?
I mean, we've discussed as a team that we're going to have to fill the positions we need, and the obstacle is giving meaningful work to people. If the buses aren't running and we have 4 bus drivers we hired, we have to provide meaningful work to them. So that would be the hurdle we'd have to overcome, is what is the meaningful work we can provide to the people we've employed while we wait for the buildings to open. That's a conversation we would have to have.
And that's just not the transportation group, that's multiple different stakeholder groups, including long-term subs, recess supervisors, a handful of groups.
Well, right now the language is not before, right? It says not before those dates. So we haven't made a firm commitment to those dates with this language. I just didn't know if it would be useful to push it back a week or not. It's sounding like it's probably not that useful to state that we're making our targets a week later.
I think just so that this admin knows that if you need us as a board to do anything at any point in time, we're going to do that. So, you know, that's out there for you. If you need us to come back in 2 weeks and make a decision based on, you know, some miraculous good news coming in, we would do that. And conversely, if, you know, if it was bad news and we came back in 3 weeks, whatever, you know, whatever it is, we will do.
Well, my gut is telling me we should meet more often as we come to the decision.
Okay. We can certainly do that.
I have no problem. They should be, well, who knows? They're never short meetings, but they should be shorter than a regular board
It
meeting.
would be a one topic agenda, but I mean, just through this conversation with you all, you know, the intricacies of what we're doing and the complexity of these decisions, the more communicative we can be with you and transparent through the processes, and the more we can all be on the same page with where we're going, I think the healthier it will be for the decision itself.
It'd probably help you save some time because you have us individually asking you questions that, you know, can be answered as a group.
Sure.
So at this point in time, I'd like to open up public comment just specifically for our Return to Learn program. And for those that would like to participate, remember, this is not a dialogue with the board. There is a 5-minute time limitation. We ask that you do not use employees' name nor student names, and that we ask that you be courteous. And lastly, that you could state your name for the record. So, Ms. Bureau, if we have anybody.
D. McCants, Mr. McCants.
Yes, Dennis McCants here. I've been listening to your return to plan to school. Everybody wants to get their kids back to school. Administrators want them in the school. The teachers want to be able to teach kids. Logistically, it's going to be a nightmare. Just a few thoughts here. There have been problems in the past with HR getting bus service for the kids anyway. So realistically, To take a bus out, to take a kid to one school, you have to return it back, or you have to spray that bus down with something to kill COVID and then go get the next group. So you're going to have to stagger your schedules as far as kids coming to school. The other thing about that is that with the science of this, I think there's going to be a huge problem in trying to get kids in school and returning from one class to the other because of the fact that the number of kids, I just don't think you're going to have enough space to get all the kids into school. Even if you do a walkthrough at the school with people to see that the school is clean and it's been basically sanitized and electrostatic cleaned and all those things like that, one kid can come in from a parent because we all have not been tested yet into a school, any school. And one kid can bring it in there and affect everybody just by touching one door handle going into the school. So I guess the thing is that there is a date that you are planning on going to school. I really think you need to look at the logistics of that as far as transportation, because legally every kid should have an opportunity to get to school by the buses. And the other thing is that unless you're going to be doing electrostatic cleaning on the buses, have somebody on the bus to clean it every time you drop off a group of kids to go to the next one, it's probably not going to work.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCants.
Cynthia McCants.
Hello, we're in different parts of the house. I didn't know he raised his hand also. But I guess some of the questions that I would like to have answered, if you guys plan on sending out more communications on this. If either a teacher or a student has to quarantine, will they just have to quarantine for 10 days and automatically come back? Or will there be a request for a test to show that they are now negative before returning to school? And in addition to that, I know one of the previous messages that we received was if whether or not you're going to send your student back or keep them online. If there's an exposure and they have to, say the student is sent back to school and then there's need for quarantine, at that point, can they go back to online or will they have to return in person? I would just, I guess I would need clarification on those things before I decided what I would do with my kids. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. McCants.
Heidi Irvine.
Hi, I just want to say thank you to Amy Dalton for what you said. I appreciate it. I'm a teacher and I have a medically fragile child and a husband with respiratory issues who can't get vaccinated right now. So anything you can do to help as many safety protocols as possible, I would appreciate. And my friends who teach in districts that are in person, they all teach in smaller high schools that have cohorts of 75 kids that change classes at a time, not as big as ours. So I don't know how we can do what they do in some of those smaller districts. So I appreciate everything everybody's doing, and I appreciate your concern for our health and safety, because personally, I'm worried about my family. And even if I can get vaccinated, exposing them. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Irvine.
Tara Farhat.
I think that as a community, we need to know, are we having a plan in place where for sure that there is going to be still a virtual option available and a live, number one. Number two, if that is the case, a lot of these stories I'm hearing, you still have an option for your children. I want to make that clear. Number 3, when thinking about this, I know we have a matrix that's very black and white. And while I appreciate science and it is the field I do work in, what I would say that this is not a black and white situation. This is very gray. And we have mental health issues going on in our school with our teens. And we have kids with IEPs or trying to get IEPs that can't even get on a learning plan. And we have middle schoolers that are using their time playing video games when they're not supposed to be doing that and being caught constantly. We have to pay for help to come in to those of us who can afford it, and to those of us who cannot afford it, they're not getting that. And I don't even know how the work that these parents are doing is phenomenal, because I sit back as a parent and I do have the ability to bring someone into my home, and I've got 4 kids in this district and they're in every level. And I hear you, I really do. I'm hiring these teams of people for the vaccination. I do understand this disease. I feel like, though, the matrix doesn't tell the story of everything. And I understand that we have a huge job in front of us, but we've had this huge job in front of us going on almost a year now. And our kids they are suffering. And I wish that, while I heard Paige's comments earlier today, I've got my own children and their comments are different. And I just feel like the voice of the community is very one-sided, that's sitting and talking to you guys. And I've been on these school board meetings, and I can't say enough that take the option to do a hybrid and stay home if that's what you need for your family. I understand it. But for those of us who have special needs children, or have children that we know that are attempting suicide and different things, I really, really encourage the school board to look at more matrix than that black and white matrix, and look at all the data out there. We have friends that live in Jenison that are doctors and pediatricians that are in school. Jenison, they're as big of a school district as us, and they're going back. So I really encourage you guys to look at a bigger picture and take the opportunity. For those of you that want to stay, that's fine. Stay online, but let those of us who really need our children back, let us come back.
Thank you, Ms. Farhat.
Brandon Curran.
Hi, I'm Brandon Curran, teacher at Holt High School. I am the Holt Education Association liaison to the Board of Education. I just want to say thank you to the Central Office and the Board of Education for our continued relationship as we work through this hard, stressful topic. There are no easy answers, and I think that may be the only thing that everyone in this meeting tonight can agree upon, that there is no easy answer to this. I appreciate the open, honest, transparent communications that we have had as a group and through this process. So thank you guys again for all your hard work during this time. We truly do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Kern.
Lisa B.
Hi, I'm Lisa Brummer. I am a parent at Holt High School. I was just wondering if we've looked into other districts that have been open and what they're doing to combat the struggles and the challenges that we see ahead. So in November, and this is according to MichiganSchoolData.org, 84% of districts offered some type of in-person learning. I know personally this included Zealand and Hamilton schools, which are both Division I schools. So we have options to go out there and to work with other schools and to learn from them and to see what they're doing to combat this and to meet the challenges that we see. So I just think we need to be reaching out into not reinventing the wheel. I'd also like to see us address the data on our students' academics trends, failing grades, whether it's multiple or one, whether our grades have trended downward, and what those percentages are, as well as the socio issues that the children are facing. I would like to see more emphasis on the students' perspective of this. And just for transparency, I work in the educational system, and I am currently going out to classrooms and districts twice a week all over the state. So I am by far not trying to put teachers in harm's way. I feel for them. I'm out there doing the same thing they are, except going to multiple schools all over. And the teachers at Holt have been incredible. My sons have had wonderful, wonderful experiences with their teachers working super, super hard to make this work. My fear is if we look at the trends of our academics, and we're gonna find that it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
I'm going to apologize for this. Stephanie D. I cannot pronounce her last name.
No problem. So my name is Stephanie Jackin. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I have a kid in 7th grade, and then I have a kid in 5th grade. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. My direct question relates to your efforts as a board on connecting with other districts on what has worked and what has not worked. Obviously, this is not a reinvent the wheel situation here. I know you probably have, but what is really disappointing as a parent is your lack of communication on what you have been doing outside of just the 4 walls of Holt. So I would like more information on what you guys have done. Obviously, some things have worked, and yes, some districts aren't the same. I like to back what Tara Farhat has said as well. The data you have shared does not speak beyond just the matrix that's shared. We have a huge social impact to these kids. As a 7th grade, with a female in 7th grade and a son in 5th grade. My son is a very studious kid, has great teachers. Shout out to Amanda Gleason and Beth Skolton. They are amazing. They do great things, but he gets very bored and he plays Fortnite way too much. I'm a working parent. My husband is too. My parents who are able to help, they help, but this cannot be something we sustain. What he's learning and what he's retaining is not on the fault of the teachers, but we have to be better for our kids. We have a larger issue on our hands beyond just COVID-19, and that is never talked about. It's not talked about. The data and the science, I understand it's important, but where is that in the mix of this? You've not talked about, give me stats on childhood depression. Give me stats on questioning the parents of how the well-being of our kids are within the district. What does that look like for our community? I've not seen that. So be realistic, be transparent, be open with all that kind of stuff, because we're all struggling. We're all here doing the same stuff. We are no further forward, I feel, that we were back in March. We have made some strides, but I feel like you guys are a broken record. We set a date and then we go backwards. And yes, the data changes and we need to be fluid, but we either need to make a decision or we need to not make a decision. And this back and forth is extremely hard. That gets the kids excited. The ones that are ready to go back, that can go back. And then we get disappointing news, or we get what if, and all this kind of stuff. We just need to make a decision and move forward. That would be my suggestion to you. In the beginning of this, I specifically had a conversation with Dr. Hornak. I 100% love you and I love the support that you give to our community. But my question to you was, is your sole focus to get these kids back face to face? Because that is where kids learn the best. It's not just about the book. It's not just about the technology. It's not about just that. It's about the social, emotional, physical support that these teachers and these people give. So let's think about outside of Holt. Let's think about beyond the borders of Holt, beyond Waverly. Let's not mimic Okemos and do all what we do, what they say Holt does. Let's go on, like the lady just said, Jennison County. Let's think about what other districts that are similar to us are doing, and let's try to make the best decision for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Sarah K8.
Hi, my name is Sarah Urzin. I am a mom of 3 kids in the district, And I have seen both sides of this. I have been very adamant about, in the beginning of this, keeping kids home. And I've seen the paradigm switch. I have been on community groups. I have heard voices of parents, people who are struggling, people who are doing fine, kids who are struggling, kids who are doing fine. Likewise, my concern as a mom now, who is also married to a healthcare worker, both of us who have had COVID-19, one of us who is now fully vaccinated, I have antibodies. I'm ready to look beyond what I was afraid of. That's just me speaking for myself, but I'm concerned with seeing it in a different light at this time, the social impacts that it is having on our kids. And when they do go back, what kind of protocols are we going to have in place for these kids who are going to be absolutely socially starved when they are put back in the atmosphere of learning? What are we going to do to have scenarios in place and potential problem solving ideas for when that happens? So my idea is to possibly have a subboard, if you will, of parent volunteers, anyone who can come up with ideas or scenarios for when and if we do return, how will we do it? Because I understand that everybody is feeling skittish. Everybody is feeling the fear of the unknown, and we all want the best for our kids, for our administration, for everyone involved. I guess in my mind and my desire, I would like to see more of a protocol in place instead of a what if, what would you do, for it to be how can we do this and what will it look like? And when it is seen, how will we handle it? And as a mom of, again, kids at all levels in this district, I have a senior who especially I would love to see have some shrapnel of a normal last year of her school experience. But just reach out if there's anybody in the community that can come together and figure out the what if, what will we do, instead of kind of hiding behind the shroud of the concern, to try to be, for lack of better words, proactive and reactive if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Karen Schultz.
Hello, I think I'm unmuted. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to thank the board and the administration for keeping the safety of our students, staff, and community top of mind through the discussion tonight and through prior discussion and work that's been done. It's obvious there's a lot of care here, and I just really appreciate that as a resident and a parent. I've lived in the district since 1997. I currently have a high school senior with special needs. I have two other students who've attended Holt School over a period of many years. And I just deeply appreciate this is a less than ideal situation. It's to plan for every scenario, right? As a resident, as a supporter of the district, I deeply support knowing the science on this. And I just want to point out that the CDC says it can take a few weeks for the body to build immunity after vaccination. So getting vaccinated does not mean that the very next day you won't get COVID or you won't give someone else COVID if you happen to have it already and maybe you're not aware of it. And I really want to make sure that we're allowing sufficient time for that vaccine to do its magic, because hopefully a lot of the employees will get the vaccine, but it doesn't mean if they finish up their second vaccine by a certain date that we can expect that they won't, get the illness and spread it even. I know a lot of our students won't be able to get it because of age restrictions. So I just hope that we keep that in mind, and that information is publicly available at cdc.gov. There are also lots of Google articles that one can find about the CDC data, specifically on how long it takes to build immunity after different types of COVID vaccines. I also want to thank the district for providing virtual instructions and other supports to date. And I hope that we have these options, as has been discussed, even after some return to in-person learning, because as has been mentioned, this will not be the ideal scenario for some of our medically fragile students or students who have family members who might not be able to get the vaccine just yet and are very susceptible. That happens to be the case in my household. And so I really appreciate having the option. And so thank you, Holt, for making sure that that remains on the list. I'm really grateful for that. And then finally, I'd like to just ask, it was mentioned earlier when we were talking about, or when you all were talking about those metrics and what's available on the dashboard, which, boy, I love data and I love that dashboard. I would love to see released to parents or maybe on the public website some of the dashboard for some of the other groups, those smaller groups that were mentioned, including for special education populations, sports centers that may exist. So that's just a request if that might be something that could be made available. Thank you, and thank you to each of the board members for your dedication to our community by serving on this board and thinking about the safety of our community as well as the learning that needs to take place, because it's so important. And I just deeply appreciate your commitment to this board. Thank you.
Sally Harrison.
Okay, are you hear me? All right. I too agree with the kids that need the social and the interaction in the classroom, and the kindergartners that aren't getting a chance to play with each other, as kindergartners should be able to play with each other and have time together. Someone was said that, I think earlier, that if you go to doing this face-to-face, that then they would have breakfast in the classroom and lunch in the classroom and recess with their teacher. What kind of a break is that giving that teacher? Is that teacher never ever getting a break? Never ever getting to go to the bathroom by themselves or whatever? It just seems like that needs to play into it too. If you're going to have another meeting in 2 weeks and try and really buckle this down and decide, will that also be a Zoom meeting? And will that be publicized so that those of us that want to listen to you all debate it, will that be on Zoom so that we can listen? That's all I have. Thank you.
Taryn Henderson.
Hi, so yes, I'm Taryn Henderson, and I am one of the teachers at the high school. I do want to say thank you to the board for giving us your time and listening to everything. Like it's been reiterated, I know this is not an easy decision, and I do not envy your position right now. But just as a teacher, wanted to share some of my own thoughts currently. So obviously we've been online this entire school year, and hearing that we will be doing both online and in-person instruction, like, makes me so scared for my own mental well-being already right now, because I've heard all the horror stories, and I have finally felt like I maybe have somewhat of a grip on this online business. And now thinking about having to recognize that I like being the teacher that I am and wanting to do the best for all of my students, recognizing that doing online and in person will, like, somebody's taking the short end, and that just does not sit well with me. As you know, our district motto being innovate, educate, inspire, I'm just wondering and I understand wanting to look at what other schools are doing, but what could we do that is innovative to help the mental health of our students right now? Because I do hear that I'm with these kids every day, and it it keeps me up at night, some of the things that I hear and just worrying about them. And so what could be done further for that? My partner works at Sparrow and has received his first vaccination, but there is not enough, from what I know right now, he could still carry the disease. And for me, and even if I am fully vaccinated myself, I worry about like just what I would do if I knew that maybe I was the reason that I gave a kid COVID, if I brought COVID to the classroom, and what that could do to my students and their families. I lost someone, my uncle, the DeWitt Township officer, to COVID a month or two ago. I don't even know at this point. And I could not put somebody else through that. And I mean, while like none of this is easy, it's safe. I feel safe and I feel okay. And as Trustee Dalton mentioned earlier, I'm a third-year teacher and my sick time is very, very limited. And that is like, even just worrying about if like I'm symptomatic, like, but maybe it's COVID, but maybe it's allergies, but maybe it's sinuses, like playing that game, but then staying home because I don't want to even risk bringing it in. And yeah, I don't got a lot of sick days as a new teacher. So just wanted to share my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson.
Jesse Cuffold.
Hi, you can hear me, right? Okay, thanks. My name is Jessie Cuffold. I teach English at the high school level, and I wanted to add my voice of thanks to the board for continuing to consider these metrics and to consider the health and safety of our students. And I feel very strongly that these metrics that we've adopted consider not only the physical health and safety of our students and our teachers and our support staff across the board in the district, but to a certain extent, it also does help. It does address some of the social, emotional concerns that we have as well, because I think to myself, I have a niece who's in kindergarten right now, and she's struggling and she cries a lot thinking about having to sit on her computer all the time. But I also think about this same child who is so loving and wants to hug everybody she meets, going into a classroom full of other children that she can't hug and get close to. And I appreciate that we are also considering what potential impact that might have. And I don't think that can be discounted as far as a mental health concern for our kids either. On a computer, you can't reach out and touch somebody. In a classroom, that's a harder concept to address, especially for our younger kids. And then I also appreciate that the board has considered that, oh my gosh, I just completely lost my train of thought. I apologize for that. But the fact that while it is important for our kids to come back, and I truly believe that, and I want to be back in the classroom, I also want to acknowledge that for a significant portion of our adult population who is also in these buildings all the time, there are so many considerations about family members who they would risk then exposing, and their own health and well-being, and everything that everyone has said before, and what Taryn just said right before me. So anyway, I just wanted to extend my thanks, that I think that I'm thankful that we are in a district going with science and data rather than just a gut feeling of this is hard and we don't want to do it anymore. And that I truly believe that what we are doing considers more than just those cold facts. I think that it takes all of us into consideration, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cuffold.
Dan Janetsky.
Can you hear us?
We can, yes.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Melissa Janetsky, and I am a parent of 3 Holt students, 2 in high school and 1 in the junior high. I'm also a local director of a childcare. And so I want to start off with saying how much I respect teachers and how scary it can be to think about coming into the classroom with all of these different children. But on the flip side, I have been working since June in a childcare setting where we have 60 plus children coming in and out of our building each day, along with parents, and having to take everyone's temperatures and have strict safety and health protocols. And we have done that seamlessly with only 1 positive case coming into the building. And that 1 positive case, we did a quarantine and not a single person contracted it from that person. So I know that these protocols work and they can be done, and they can be done safely, even with young children who are still mouthing toys and things like that. I mean, we don't have to worry about that with our age group of children that we're talking about today. But to get into more specifics about the upper grades, I just wanted to express that it's not working. What we're doing right now is not working. My children are sinking. Our family is drowning. We're both full-time working parents. I'm leaving a 13-year-old and 2 15-year-olds at home to do this. I'm sorry, but with not having to get up and go to school, getting out of bed is a struggle in the morning for them. They are sleeping through classes and so on and so forth. It's just not gripping their interest. And when I try to reach out to have help from teachers, I don't feel as supported as I should be. I'm a very involved parent, and they're not giving us the time after 2:30 to deal with things. They want kids to wake up even earlier and try to get out of bed earlier to do tests that they may have missed or things like that. And if we're going to keep online, we have to think about restructuring this and making it so children and parents are able to access things in the evening. An example of this also is when I helped my child get through an assignment and there was no resources to help us get through that assignment. I used my knowledge, and then I was told by the teacher that he couldn't give any feedback because we weren't doing the method in class. Well, I'm his teacher at this point, so I don't know what else to do. Another issue I would like to address as well is that you guys have mentioned needing meaningful work for bus drivers or something of that nature. If you don't go back on the day that you say, well, there's a lot of meaningful work out there for these kids. If you put them in maybe small groups or breakout sessions and put them into tutoring or things like that for the children who are falling behind. The last I heard, our district has 52% of children failing in some form. My 8th grader has gotten nothing out of this year. One of my 10th graders is probably going to have to retake almost every core class. And that's with me being on them every single day and helping them till 10 o'clock at night, every night. And we're still not getting through this material because we're not supported. So that's just a thought. And then also for passing time, I know that that's going to be a huge struggle logistically. And I just want to throw out there something that we had did in my high school was block scheduling and maybe keeping this 3 hours a day and making it so they're not passing 6 times a day, and relooking at how we can structure our day while we're in person to make that work. But I know it's a scheduling nightmare, and I know you guys have been on this constantly, and I do appreciate everything you're doing, but I just think that there's a lot of other perspectives that aren't being heard out here in the community. And I think that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Janeski.
Brandy?
Good evening, board. I'm back again. Hello. Yes, it just kind of is frustrating listening to this board meeting as a parent. I've been on these board meetings every month. I've spoke every month. Pretty much there's 2 or 3 of us that speak. Tonight, I don't even know how many we've had. So if there's been so much concern through all of these months, why haven't you guys been on the board meetings speaking? You've been all over social media, but nobody comes to the board. Nobody. I think the board is doing a phenomenal job. Listening to that teacher just absolutely broke my heart. I'm so glad you did not call on me after her. It's true. My sister is an educator. They're scared. They can't get vaccinated yet. And science hasn't proven yet that just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you can't carry it and still spread it. So none of these kids are going to be vaccinated. The only thing they can get is Pfizer. 16 and up can get Pfizer. Well, we can't get our hands on Pfizer. You're going to be lucky if you have a kid who has some kind of ailment or health issue that will be able to be vaccinated. So I understand the emotional side. I have had a child who has gone through emotional issues. I get it. It's horrible. The social part is horrible. But they're also learning other things. We've never lived through a pandemic. Like, you have to realize that nobody knows the right answers here. We have, what, 1,500 kids in our school? So say half of those come back in the high school. How do you social distance them? How do you move classrooms? It just, listening tonight and watching the curriculum people, I feel so bad for them. I'm sure they're not sleeping at night. Like, how do you manage this? And there's no way to make everyone happy. There's not. It's everyone's going to be mad. If you send them back, they're going to be mad because yes, you'll have an online option, but it's probably not going to be the same because that teacher's time is going to be split. So is the online students going to be getting the same type of learning that they're getting now? It's going to be different. It's going to be different from everybody. I just feel like what the school board is doing is correct. You're looking at the science, you set matrix. We're looking at those matrix. I agree with coming back together in 2 weeks because as you're looking at things right now, you haven't hit the 2-week peak after New Year's Eve. So we need to see what happens. Do we have a spike after New Year's Eve? We haven't seen that trend yet. So we're still waiting on that 2-week period. And I'm fortunate that I was able to get one vaccination and I will be getting my second one on January 26th. And I'm happy that I was able to do that. And I wish that everybody who wanted it could, but it's just not possible. So I think staying remote and keeping our teachers safe, keeping our staff safe, there's no indication that, or there is indication that kids could be asymptomatic and carrying it. A lot of kids are asymptomatic and carry it. So you've got that component. So I think what the school board is doing is the correct thing. I think you're following the matrix. I think you're following the science, and I think that's what you should be doing.
All right, thank you, Brandy.
James Lennon.
Hey folks, Jim Lennon here, a longtime listener, first time caller. So just want to thank y'all for what you do. I do appreciate it. Had zero intention on speaking tonight. I've listened to all the board meetings on Zoom. I just planned on listening again tonight, and but there has been a lot of talk about vaccines, so I thought I'd jump in and say something. I have two kids. One recently graduated from Holt High. He's a freshman in college now, and I do have a junior at the high school. Last year when we went to remote learning, totally in support. Even my senior he got interviewed on the news. He was like, hey, if we need to miss prom to flatten the curve, that's what we got to do. Let's get together and do this thing. And so we've been supportive all along. But I do got to chime in. Staying remote until everyone got vaccinated was never, ever the plan. And I know we're all excited because the vaccine got released way earlier than it was supposed to be. But staying remote until everyone got vaccinated was never the dialogue. It was never, it was never the plan. And I understand that the vaccination came early. Fortunately, my family doesn't really need it now. COVID's went through our house, so I guess we're all okay. But there's a lot of schools that have already went to in person and they aren't vaccinated. The teachers have just been teaching. And so I understand that there's a ton of working parts in this plan, so I'm not going to really get into that. The only thing that I wanted to mention was that staying remote until everyone got vaccinated was never the plan. Flatten the curve was the plan. And so again, I thank you all for what you do. I really don't have much else to say, but best of luck. It's not an easy job. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Lennon.
Alan Ingram.
Hello again. Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you. As I've listened tonight, I know I spoke a piece earlier in the meeting. I certainly don't want to take up too much more time, but as I'm listening to the other parents and folks talk, I can't help but be sitting here on the couch with my wife and thinking, oh my God, we're not alone. Because we have felt all of those things from Ms. Farhat earlier on to some of the other ones. The social issues that are prevalent right now are crazy. They are very real. We have a kindergartner who prior to this was very well adjusted, no problems, who now has so much anxiety that we take her to our own therapist once a week. And we have never had a child in that. And she spends an hour with her feelings helper, as we call her, just to figure out ways to cope with the anxiety of not being able to go and see friends at a school, not being able to go and hug her 92-year-old grandfather, or go and see her other grandparents or other loved ones, or go make friends down the street. The social implications for this are massive. And we are in no means discounting the fears of teachers and educators and what have you. I hear them, I do. The problem that we've encountered is, we have reached out for our kindergartner for assistance with the school. And somebody had mentioned early on, I think it might've been Ms. Farhat, who said these students need an IEP or need special needs or need special help. And we are one of those families where she has an IEP for speech, or we have been fighting to get an IEP for speech for her, advocating and literally feels like yelling and screaming to get that attention for her that we are not getting. And it is now 4.5 months into the school year and we still don't have it. And we don't have the support that we need remotely from the district. So we need her to be back in front of a classroom. We need her to be back with a teacher, and her teacher, and I apologize for saying the name, but Miss Rogers is fantastic. She deserves every bit of recognition in the world because she is a gem in this district. And if it were not for her, our daughter would be drowning, and she is the shining light for us. The social impacts for her and for the rest, and for our third grader as well, are immense. And we need her back in school because we do not want anybody obviously to get sick. And the last gentleman who spoke, absolutely, the vaccine is a great thing. It is not realistic to wait for every single person to get vaccinated because there's no guarantee that every single person will get vaccinated. And if one person doesn't, then it's for naught. And then we're back at square one. So thank you to the parents who have shared the exact same struggles that my family has shared. Thank you to the board for listening. Thank you to the teachers for continuing to do the work that you do. I do not want to be in your shoes any more than I'm sure you want to be at the moment. But thank you for everything. And really just please keep in mind these children's social needs and their social development as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram.
Amy M.
Good evening, board. I am a 22-year teacher, and I'm a teacher at Wilcox, and I teach the very little kids in the transitional kindergarten program. And I'm also a parent in the district. I have a 12-year-old daughter. I'm a single mom, and I am also a caregiver to my mom who is older, and I am feeling a lot of things right now, and there is no other place I would rather be than in front of my 4- and 5-year-olds teaching. They give the best hugs, they have the best jokes, the best stories. They can make you smile on your worst day, and you forget what it is like to be a 4- or 5-year-old, because in a world that is the way it is now, they help you forget what's going on. And when you see that, it's amazing to know that you're a part of their lives. I guess as a mom and as a teacher, I would feel so much better returning, having had 2 vaccines. And it's just hard for me to even fathom not knowing if I were carrying the virus, if I brought it home to my daughter or my mom. It would just be heartbreaking to me. And last year I lost a student in my classroom, and I cannot even begin to express the feelings, the anguish, the hurt, just the absence of the little life that she left, and the impression upon everyone in our classroom. And I hope no other teacher ever has to go through that, because it was awful. And there's still not a day that goes by that I really am not reminded of that little girl. And it's just something that I carry with me. And it's just hard for me to think about that could possibly happen to a friend or a student of mine or anyone that I know. So I just wanted to reach out. I know that, there's no good answer here. There's no answer that's going to really suffice and make the problem go away or anything like that. But I just feel like, that it's hard being a parent, and it's hard being, a teacher on both sides, because I see the struggles. But I also have some comfort. I take some comfort in knowing that, I am safe here, and my daughter is safe here, and we're not getting sick. And it's a hard thing. It's not a easy not an easy thing to have to decide, but I appreciate what the board is doing and I appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Hayden Massey.
Hi, this is a little bit scary, but hi, my name is Hayden Massey and I'm a sophomore at the high school. I personally have been very challenged this year with online school. I would lie if I said that this was easy. I get so excited every time that we find out a new date to go back to school, and I start a countdown on my phone for that date, but I end up being heartbroken at the end of the day because it keeps getting pushed back. I have total respect for all of you and what you have been doing for us, because I know that if I was in your position, then I'm not sure if I could do it. When we started online school, I absolutely loved it, because who wouldn't love getting more time to sleep in and more free time every day to do things like sports. But now that it is January and we do not have sports at the moment, I am personally struggling a lot. I miss the social aspect of school and being taught face-to-face in person. I have not been grasping what I have been learning online, and it has been very tough on me. I feel like we are all struggling right now, and I just have so much hope that we will return face-to-face learning soon. This has not been easy, but I really hope that we will go back. I also believe that my teachers have been doing an incredible job with the position that they have been put in. But I overall am just hoping that we can go back. This is so hard for all of us, and I believe we should go back for both our mental health and social aspect. I also have been tutoring a second grader, and I have been seeing how hard it has been for not just high schoolers, but younger kids to experience online school as well. And I am so happy that I'm able to help the second grader, but I know that there are so many kids that can't get the help that I have been giving. I'm also speaking for the students who have been struggling with their mental health because of the cause of online school. I'm behind and I am struggling. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, Ms. Massey.
Jessica B.
Well, hang on. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, guys. I'm Jessica. I'm sure you guys know who I am, but I felt like I needed to talk because I see parents' frustration. I created the group, the Holt Virtual Learners, so I see what parents are saying. And so I have two kids in the district, a fifth grader and a first grader. I had to pull my first grader because this year has been extremely hard for him. Having a kindergartner that wasn't able to finish the school year strong or even halfway really. So I had to pull him because we were struggling pretty bad. And then my fifth grader being told, you know, he's getting these supports, but also because he's not on every morning, first thing in the morning, truancy is being held above parents' heads. During such a hard time already for these kids when they are trying to just be able to complete work during a pandemic. Also, there's a lot of unanswered questions for these parents. What if a teacher gets COVID? Does just the teacher get quarantined? Do all the students go back to online learning? It's just kind of up in the air. Also, there was a comment that said vaccines. Is there talk of the students needing to be vaccinated as well? Because I feel like eventually we're going to be there. There's just a lot of questions for the transportation. You're going to be transporting some students, but not all, it sounds like. I think if we go back to in person, it needs to be given a choice to be in person or not to be in person. I think the board needs to really kind of come to a decision. Parents are frustrated that we're kind of back and forth all the time, and it's just, we need to come to a decision of what we're going to do. I know it's hard for you guys, but I feel like being in the routine that we're already in right now is probably the best for everyone at this point. I mean, I don't know. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica.
Danielle Murphy.
Hello, my name is Danielle Murphy. I'm a proud Holt alumni, and I have two little girls, a kindergartner and a third grader, and I claim another kindergartner that comes over and does online school with us as well. I just want to say thank you to the Holt School Board for your time and attention on this matter. I know none of this is easy. One of the things, I know we had a parent say that vaccination hadn't been on the table, also acknowledge that we're above the timeline. I know, to me, thinking about how close we are to being able to have all of our education staff actually be vaccinated, it just seems really silly to push the timeline when we're so close. I think the governor's sort of goal of March 1st may be pretty indicative of what we might actually be able to do as far as getting our education staff vaccinated. So that's, I think, definitely something to consider when looking at a hybrid or in-person option. I think it is also really important for people to remember that this isn't going to be a normal experience for our kids, even the ones who do go back. I know my little third grader today was panicked at the thought of having to sit in her chair all day. She misses her friends. She loves her teachers. She loves her school. She's a Sycamore superstar, and she's so proud of that. But, and she's so proud for her sister to be able to be one too. But she's like, Mom, I couldn't sit in my chair last year, and we got to get up and go to stations and to kinetics and to all the fun things. And now we're gonna have to sit in our chair all day. So I think that's something to also consider when we're talking about kids. I also think there's the thinking about switching teachers. I know that there hasn't been a lot of discussion. I know for my children in particular, there would be a sense of loss to lose the teachers that they've bonded with, that they've been on this journey with. And I think that's something really important to consider. You know, not all teachers are going to be able to maybe get vaccinated. I know of at least a couple teachers who have immune issues, and I worry about them all the time. So I just think that's something that we also need to consider when we're talking about giving our kids a sense of normalcy. And I do think it's just, in general, I work in higher education, so my perspective is a little bit different. I do work with learners. They are physicians. Very fortunately, they have all been vaccinated. I will admit it was a huge weight off my shoulders when that happened. But I do think we need to stop putting pressure on our kids to be normal in this environment. None of this is normal. Our kids are going to be okay. I think, if anything, we can provide some more community support to one another. They're going to learn. It's going to be a little bit different, but I do really believe that our educators are top notch, and they will make sure, they've been making sure our kids are okay. So I do believe, as a community, let's help our educators meet those kids who need the extra help. And let's just keep being the good community that we are, and we will all get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
Susan Morgan.
Good evening. My name is Susan Morgan, and I am a paraeducator at Holt High School. I am also part of our childcare division. So I get around. I would like to thank each and every one of you for your dedication to our learning community. I appreciate each of you. Because I am in our childcare department, I have been back with students since June. And no one wants to be back with my high school kids more than me. But I would like to caution that since we have these benchmarks in place of targets we would like to have before we return, If we fail to hold firm to those targets, we risk losing credibility in our integrity. What confidence can anyone have moving forward that the protocols, the safety protocols that we say we will have in place in this time will be followed if we don't follow the benchmarks that we have set forth? I love this district. If I didn't, I wouldn't be working a full day as a paraeducator and going in to help out childcare. I'm working 9 and 10-hour days because the program needed me. Some days it's great. Some days I'm exhausted. And I can tell you, social distancing with kindergartners and is not a thing. It's very difficult to try and keep them apart. They're kids. They want to touch, they want to hug, they want to do all the things that we want to do. And it's so hard, even with a small group of 10 kids or less in a classroom, to tell them you can't do that. Especially when I want nothing more than to hug them too. So please give the integrity of our school district consideration when making your decision of returning face-to-face. And again, believe me, no one wants to go back more than I do. I miss my high school kids terribly. And nothing pains me more than the idea that I'm going to have to lose another group of seniors without an opportunity to say goodbye to them like I did last year. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Jen.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah. My name is Jennifer Sharp, and we have 4 students, 3 of whom attend Holt Public Schools, and we have 1 student who attends Hartwood School in Mason. I just wanted to make sure that, included in the data that's being considered when we're looking at our matrix for returning to in-person learning, that we're also considering data that's provided by the CDC as well as health departments, which shows that transmission of COVID-19 is not occurring in schools. There are cases in schools, but contact tracing has shown that those cases are originating outside of schools, and that there isn't a high transmittance rate within the schools. In addition, the Michigan Department of Education has recommended that schools return for in-person learning because that is what is best for the students and what is recommended by the data that I've already mentioned. I'd also like to just speak to the fact that I know a lot of people are saying, that there's more people speaking tonight. Obviously, I'm one of those people who has just been listening and wasn't planning on speaking, but you have a survey that you sent out to your learning community, and there is the voice that you guys should be concerned with. 77% of your families have spoken and said that we want our students back for in-person learning. And you all have an obligation to your learning community to listen to that voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
There are no other hands raised at this time.
Okay, if there is no one else, I will close this section of public comment and we will return to our learning update, and I would entertain a motion for that.
Jessica, what's the motion that you need?
I believe, and Christine might have the exact language we need every month, but I believe it is to adopt or approve the continuous learning. Oh, what is it, Christine?
Your motion will be to approve the continuity of learning update as presented.
There you go. Thank
Okay.
you.
So we are approving the update. We're not actually approving any dates really, but
Correct.
I will move that we approve the continuity of learning update as presented.
I will second.
I have a first and second discussion.
Sorry, will you just clarify one more time? In this plan, does it have those February dates, or it does not have the February dates?
It is the same as last month where it says with no earlier of a start date than February 16th and 22nd, but it doesn't tie you to those dates.
Okay, thank you.
I will do my monthly thanking Jessica and Steve and the rest of the team for a mountain of work that you're doing. I'm looking forward to walking through the buildings in a few weeks to see what you guys have accomplished on the ground.
Ms. Bureau, if we could do a roll call vote.
Leonard,
Yes.
Bureau, yes. Halgren,
Yes.
Dalton,
Yes.
Roble,
Yes.
Jones, yes. and Perry.
Yes.
Thank you, board.
Motion passes. I believe Steve and Jessica, that's it.
It is.
All right. Again, thank you. So we will move to HR and Dr. Quinlan.
Good evening. I would just like to take a moment to say I also listened carefully to the public comment this evening and hear the urgency and critical need to recruit, hire, and maintain a diverse workforce, which mirrors our student population, especially our students of color. I do look forward to working with the passionate parents and the community who put the time and research into the work that they presented tonight. Leverage the work of our partnership with Great Lakes Equity that Mr. Dozier spoke about tonight, and collaborate on the work we've already started within Holt Public Schools to bring a strong proposal for action to the Board of Education. You have in front of you, I believe, the HR report. I think Peter's also on the call if you have any questions for us tonight.
Erin, I just have one quick question. Sorry, Amy.
That's okay. Go ahead.
On the chart that you give us every month, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Underneath the third column there, I don't want to give too much away in this conversation.
Sure.
The first one there on that list, does that one belong there?
On the not the new hires, not the retirees, the other column, is that what you're referring to?
Correct.
Yeah, on the far right, there was just no other column for that. So on the far right, I believe it might have gotten cut off if you just are looking at a regular, unless you're looking at it in the computer, it should say a designation of what happened there.
Okay.
Trying to be vague. We can, Peter's on the call too, if there was any questions with that we needed to. We know there was an email about that.
Okay. Is that the term that's usually used?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I was was just going to ask two questions. One, I just want to reiterate that at some point I would really like an organizational chart for the district. And the other thing is, you know, what I said earlier, which is I just really want to watch that FFCRA. So if you can keep us in the loop as you learn anything, that is an important component to the return plan. Even though I'm not hearing a lot of discussion about it, I think that's huge. So I just want to make sure that you keep us informed if you know, when you receive information about that. Thank you.
We certainly will. And as we said last month with the organizational chart, Dr. Hornak might have more, but we have a draft, and I think we were going to look over it at our next retreat planning day, just to make sure we don't have any edits or adjustments before we share that with you. And definitely, I will keep you updated on the FFCRA and how we are moving through that with our bargaining units.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for HR? If not, thank you both. And move to financial matters in Ms. Cosgrove.
Sure, you do have your monthly financial packet in your packet. And I have identified just two anomalies that you would see there. It would be the COVID grants that are coming through. We will be bringing to you your first budget update. It will have all of the grants that are in there. So that will come next month. But I don't have any specific report or any comments unless you have a question.
Of that 2 million in the federal grants, is there more to come? That's the money that's come in today, correct?
Right, correct. Actually, we have not requested any of the ESSER funds. That's $520,000. That is more like a federal grant where you have to spend the money and then you request it. So none of that money has been requested, but all of that money sitting there, the $2,046,000 is COVID money. It is childcare COVID money. Last year, there was some categorical COVID money and the 1.9 million.
Okay.
So in that chart, the thing that jumps out is the minus 173%, which is I don't think I've ever seen a number quite like that on a report. That is just reflecting the fact that we got substantially more in federal grant money and spent it than was in the budget originally.
Right. In your original budget, we did not have grant money there. It was May. And so the board the state of Michigan had not done any of that work yet, and we did not recognize it.
Okay. I just that number jumped out at me. I just wanted to make sure I understood what it meant.
So next month, all of those would be recorded. The budget would be recorded to that. And then we also will show you what they are in total.
Have we spent that 500,000 in ESSER's funds?
Portions, but not all.
Okay.
Actually, the district has the ability to change the ESSER grant as many times as they would like. And Mr. Netzel has changed it because when the CRF $1.9 million worth of funds came, and we had to spend that money by December 31st, we moved some of the money off of one grant onto that because curriculum has the ability to spend the ESSER $520,000 up to September 30th of 2021. So we are trying to use all of them in the best way that we can.
And then the CARES Act got extended a year, correct? So we could go back if needed to and reallocate some of those expenses.
Right, correct. It is our understanding is that there is more federal money coming. We just don't know. The state would have to move on that and how they would disperse it or the requirements that are around it.
No answers.
More to come next month. May not be answers, but
No, I meant from the state and whatnot. I mean, it's this, it's just the life that we're living. So. All right. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move to the calendar. Dr. Hornak, if there's some specific items in there that you wanted to point out, maybe?
Yep, we still have 108 participants. I would like to remind everyone that next Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We do not have school. I would urge everyone to serve your community the best you possibly can. In our case, while we're not meeting as a board and admin team for our midwinter break, midwinter workshop, central office is meeting to discuss things like additional mental health supports, nurses, potentially DEI coordinator, etc. And we're starting to vision for the rest of this year and then start visioning for the next school year. So we'll have some more information. That also includes discussing Vice President Dalton's request for an updated org chart. So that's hopefully going to get refined next week. So no school on Monday. We resume Tuesday. We've got our second semester coming back on January 25th. We're back together on the 8th. Okay, so a bit of a short turnaround. February 10th is count day. February 12th is midwinter break, and that's a Friday, Monday. And then we resume school on February 16th, which is a Tuesday. And maybe the day that we welcome some of our kids back, but time will tell. So that's it on the calendar.
Okay, we'll move to old business. And board members, you had the naming guide and partnership in your board packet. And Ms. Bureau, I don't know if you have some comments here you'd like to make. You're on mute, Julie.
Sorry, I keep losing my cursor. Does anybody have any questions on it? We'll start with that.
I have one question.
Yes.
For like naming rights, there's the press box and the stadium. I'm great with those, but I was wondering if we could add, and then there's other naming right, like the classroom, the janitor's closet, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Can we also break out, because I think the football field and the track are their own separate entities because different sports and the band uses that. So I didn't know if we could put that in there along with the press box, stadium, track, and field.
Okay. Yes. So the items listed, and we're still, I'm going to be honest, we're still looking at adding a page. So, you know, it's highlighted in their suggested opportunities. So those were ones that we kind of identified as things like we wanted to be able to offer suggestions, things that we identified as something that would be really good for the district, you know, like maybe some wants for us, if that makes sense. And, but it's more of a guideline, like if you're going to write a proposal, this is what something could look like. This is what we're kind of thinking of. It's more of a launch pad. And so all through this, you'll see where it says we can add other things, you know, make a proposal that you would feel comfortable with. We can absolutely add those. I have no problem adding those. We did send it out to the directors for the various departments and the principals and stuff to see if there were any projects on there. And I was really surprised at how few projects were suggested or offered up. I was very, very shocked by that. But yes, we can absolutely add this. To your other question, yes, that was an attorney question on the initial draft that we sent to the attorneys. So based on the questions that the attorneys had, we did some language changes and kind of cleared up things. The only thing that we weren't able to clear up, and I want to point this out because it's kind of a big thing, is on the page it's process. My pages are not numbered, I'm sorry. Maybe it is. It might be on the next page. Okay, under process, there were some comments on this side regarding Title IX. Just so everybody is, I want everybody to read those so everybody is clear on that concerns in regards to Title IX.
Sorry, which page are we looking at, Julie?
It's the one that says process on it.
It's near the front then.
Sorry.
Process, okay.
7.
So yeah, there's some notes in regards to Title IX from actually both attorneys each left a note on that.
It's too small for me to read. I gotta make it bigger.
Yeah. So yeah. And another thing that I want to make clear from some discussion, from all the discussions we've had, is this isn't a policy. This is really like an administrative guideline or a district guideline, right? That we don't have to have a formal vote on this. It's kind of, we started with the policy subcommittee. I believe Rob sat in with us that time, and Dr. Hornak and Mrs. Dalton. We were all there, and because there were a lot of questions of where do we start? What kind of fees are we talking about? Are we talking about 500? Are we talking about, so we did a bunch of research and brought a few different things to the table of what other districts do, and we stumbled upon one that was kind of our launching point. So while this document is probably 95% complete, and we've answered all of the questions or concerns that any attorneys might have, and we've ran it through everything, and we've checked it against our policy. Again, it's more of a guideline. So this is kind of this is where I think have finally landed with everybody's questions and concerns over the last period. I mean, it's been, a lot of people have read this. The board's read it several times. Admin's had it back and forth. It's gone to, again, to, you know, Mr. Miller and Ms. Sadler and the directors and the principals to see where we're at. But it's really a guideline and a launching point. So we don't have to formally adopt, but if there's any final suggestions, I guess, as we complete this, one suggestion was maybe any final tweaks that we have to it, because the last page that I wanted to have in here, or I thought we should have in here based on everybody's suggestions, was maybe condensing it down a little bit more and having these suggestions that we've already got, but kind of like an a la carte page. This is what you should think about when writing a proposal. You know, what is the long-term goal of the project? Is there any maintenance? And if so, how is it going to be maintained? You know, questions like this. What's the big picture? Who will this serve? How does it meet the goals of our student body, for us to educate and build up our student body? So we kind of wanted to have that page instead of having a formal application, because once we got the formal application looked at, everybody was like, yeah, this is really not what we're looking for. So we thought maybe just that guideline sheet. So that was really the last piece to the puzzle. And it was suggested to me that maybe when we seat people for the subcommittee for this, or the committee to accept the proposals, that they think back on all these conversations and are the ones that kind of create that checklist, right? So that would really be the last piece.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that I think it's I mean, it's been a long time coming, a lot of eyes on this already, but it's
Oh, yeah.
it's really at the point where it's got to be tested on the ground to see what needs to be changed, right? Because there's things that we just haven't thought of that will become apparent as we go through the process.
Yes, exactly. Which is why we thought maybe punting that last piece off to those people who are getting those first look at those proposals and sitting down at the table with the people making the proposals.
I have one suggestion and then
Yes.
one question. Whoever is this person that commented in the green yellow, I think they kind of hit it right on the head with consistency. Like if, for example, to keep the bullets consistent with the sponsorship items that are returned for a funding mechanism, example, like tickets for football season and tickets for a basketball season, or gymnastics or soccer, to make that consistent throughout.
Oh, yeah. I thought about that as we were going through. That's why I was thinking the language of, these are suggestions, like things that could or could not be requested. And quite honestly, I thought about maybe just putting one or two suggestions down and scrubbing the rest to make it easier to read, and then just having a page of, hey, these are some things that you may want to consider, like an a la carte list. And in the end, after discussion with others, that it was kind of decided to left like this. It's to kind of give them options, like you may not want this, so.
And then
yeah.
My last question is, with like the 30-year agreement, if that's what we decide on, and it says permanent signage, if that 30 years comes up and that money isn't reallocated to this, whatever they want to name, what happens then? Do we give them an option after 10 years to re-up for another 20 with a different amount, or is the signage taken down? That's
Yes, because the way our policy reads, we have 5-year increments. And when I talked to Dr. Halleck from Neola, he's like, well, if you further read into that policy, well, we can change we could change our policy to read anything we want, he said, but embedded in our policies and embedded in any formalization that we would have with these people, if somebody wanted something for longer than the 5 years, he said it's just a no-brainer. You put it that they have the first rights every 5 years on a renewal. It would be reviewed, right? So that's how you get that. And as far as permanent signage, I mean, unless it's engraved into a building, pretty much anything would be removable. But I think if somebody's going to make that kind of contribution.
just want to make sure we're all clear.
Nope, I understand what you're saying. I think that's yeah, I think we can figure that out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So do we need board action on this, or is this just a informational thing? You said we didn't have to vote on it because it's not policy.
No, it's not policy. It's based, it comes out of all the questions we had as we were doing policy, and then questions that came up from there, and a lot of discussion is how it came up, but it's not actually policy. My recommendation would be to keep it as an administrative guideline type of document.
All right. Accept all the changes and put it to bed. You can go do something else, Julie.
And that was the other thing when we were like, do we want to give them a clean copy, or do we want one with all of these changes in it? And we waffled back and forth. And normally everybody likes to see all the changes when we do things like this. So yeah, it's pretty messy, but there it is. And so that's it. So now we can move forward if anybody has, proposals they want to write. We've got our ducks in a row, or admin, or we all do, to move forward and figure out how we want to do these things, right?
Yeah, if we could just throw a clean copy up on SharePoint.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to do that.
When you get time.
Christine, I'll probably need a reminder. I'll put it on my to-do list right now, though.
I got you covered. And if you want me to go through and accept all the changes and put it up there, you know, I can do that.
Okay. I'm sure we'll talk in the morning because we usually do.
And if we could possibly add the changes that I suggested or just leave those as suggestions, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. Nope. I will. I have that note right here.
All right. If there's no other discussion, we'll move to new business. If no new business, we do not need a closed session this evening, so that eliminates the next section of open. It moves us to,
Bakken traditional motion.
well, you know, we might have to change that.
Okay, we'll make it the Rob traditional motion. I will move that we adjourn.
Yeah.
Have a first and a second. Ms. Spiro, if we could do a roll call.
Uh-huh. Dalton?
Yes.
Robo?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Halgren?
Yes.
Bureau, yes. Mr. Perry?
Yes. All right, good evening.
Okay.
Good
Well,
night.
I've just got 6 hours till the next meeting. All right. Take care, everyone. See you later.
Yeah.
Night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.